Welcome to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, where Spurs' recent European success has not resembled their home form.
The long wait is over. Tottenham Hotspur players drop to their knees. The substitutes spill onto the pitch, and the wild celebrations in the Tottenham Hotspur end. It is their first European trophy in 41 years. It is their first bit of silverware in 17 years and 86 days.
Tottenham haven't cleared this yet. Back's been won back by Caicedo, who's able to turn it to João Pedro, who scores! 8 yards out. Excellent persistence from Caicedo initially, but Tottenham only have themselves to blame there.
Boos ringing out at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, and pretty much every single Spurs player marching straight off the pitch.
Thomas Frank all on his own down there, Rob, is applauding the Tottenham fans who are still here. Really only a matter of a couple of thousand.
They were just frustrated with the performance, the loss and the booing during the game.
Tottenham's Europa League success feels both very recent and also a very long time ago. A very good evening to you from Chris Coles and the rest of the 5 Sports Extra team. Champions League football to bring you this evening. Tottenham Hotspur against Copenhagen, the 4th match of the group stage, match day 4 as UEFA like to coin it. And it is a big one for Spurs following that abject defeat here against Chelsea in the Premier League. A narrow defeat, but it was the manner of the defeat that so irked the Tottenham Hotspur faithful. And the big talking point following the game, the Mickey van der Ven, Jed Spence snub. And we'll talk about that in due course. We'll hear from Thomas Frank, we'll run you through the two sides and bring you full live commentary right through until 10 o'clock this evening, in the company of former Premier League defender Curtis Davis. Curtis, evening to you.
Good evening, mate. How are you?
Yeah, very well, thank you. Firstly, it's always a pleasure being in this venue. It's such a formidable place to come. It goes back miles into the sky. The South Stand to the right seems to go on forever. But it's a big game, this, for Tottenham, given recent events.
It is. I think it's a big game to change narratives. Obviously, the fans weren't too happy with the performance the weekend. I think, a Spurs team at home to lose to Chelsea is one thing, but to have your lowest XG, and listen, XG only means so much, but to have your lowest XG in over 500 games kind of sums up the type of performance it was. I think it was compounded with, the Jed Spence, Van der Ven type snub, shall we say. I think there's bigger things to that. Sometimes players just want to get in the tunnel, deal with it after, rather than, be standing out there and walking around every corner of the pitch. But yes, this is a big night, and ultimately it's a must win. They've started well in the tournament. Spurs, 2 draws and a win. But they'll want to make sure that they get back to winning ways now, because they don't want to make any habits of losing these kinds of games.
So we have the Champions League flag in the centre circle. We have the Copenhagen fans in the corner of the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. They're an enthusiastic bunch, and they've been here for some time, making plenty of noise, and the Spurs fans gradually filling in to the stadium. Let's hear from the Spurs head coach Thomas Frank. They have started their Champions League campaign well, but their Premier League form's slightly fluctuating. Frank says it's a relatively small sample for him to look into.
First and foremost, we need to work very hard on keep adding performances, keep adding layers, keep improving. We work very hard on the training pitch, in meeting rooms and one-to-one actions, and I see a good improvement in the team in general. Of course, we're coming on the back of a bad performance. There's a big flashing light right now, so everyone have a little bit struggled to look past that and look at some of the very good performance we had this year as well. I also think it's fair to say that we coming off the back of in many ways a fantastic season, but also a tough season. And if anyone have said that we now have been 17 points after 10 games, unbeaten in Champions League. I don't know what we are, 5th. It doesn't matter where we are now. It's where we end in the end of the season. Everything's definitely not perfect, but there's a decent foundation, and then it's up to us to add layers. I think everyone would have taken that situation where we are in now, in terms of 22 defeats last year and finished 17th, and Europa League is fantastic. Wow, but Champions League is different.
Tottenham head coach Thomas Frank on his side start to the Premier League season. Curtis, 6th in the Premier League, 5 wins from their 10 matches. The problem seems to be playing here. Just 3 wins from their past 19 matches at home, and only Southampton have a worse record across the top 4 tiers, and that is a massive surprise given that this is a club that won the Europa League less than 6-7 months ago. That has to change if Spurs are to make a success of this season.
Yeah, it does have to change, but let's not forget most of that was Ange. With all due respect, listen, he went and won the Europa League. That was his plan. He, let's say, gave up on the league, thinking that the 3 teams that came up, they weren't really good enough. They were going to go back down, and he kind of just doubled down on winning Europa League to get himself in the Champions League. Ended up doing it, but yes, that does need to improve, and starting tonight they need to go and get a win.
Copenhagen, 16-time champions of Denmark, 1 point from their 3 Champions League games. They got a creditable draw against Leverkusen before defeats to Karabag and Dortmund, and it's this kind of fixture, Curtis, that if it does not go Spurs' way, as the lights dim and darken at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium ahead of the now traditional light scene before any home game at Spurs, it's very impressive. All the supporters with their smartphones, with the torch setting on, so lots of lights everywhere we look. It's this sort of game that can be so awkward for a team like Tottenham, and if you're Thomas Frank, I suppose it's all about mentality. It's all about approaching this as if you're playing one of the top teams in Europe.
Yeah, you have to be, because listen, it's a Champions League night. Spurs, as we spoke about, fought so hard last year to win the Europa League to make sure they were on this stage. They've got to this stage now. They've had the so-called bigger teams that they've played so far in the likes of Monaco, Villarreal. With obviously they won here against Villarreal, but this is a must-win. This is a team that, yes, FC Copenhagen have probably been in the Champions League more than Spurs over the last few years, but it's a team that you look at, they're sitting 32nd in the league for a reason. You've got to, as a Spurs team, particularly go out on the front foot, create a lot of chances, try and score a few goals to get these crowd behind you and go and win the game.
Now, one of the big talking points post-Chelsea, the Van der Ven Spence snub. I'm sure you've seen it across social media, both walking past head coach Thomas Frank, who implored them to applaud the fans, but they didn't. They walked straight off the pitch after that defeat to Chelsea. Here is Thomas Frank. This is his reaction to the incident.
Mickey and Jet came into my office yesterday on prompt, just said they want to say sorry for the situation. They didn't want it to look bad or disrespectful or all kind of perception you can get in this beautiful media world. So that was not their intention at all towards me or the team or the club. They were just frustrated with the performance, the loss and the booing during the game.
Thomas Frank on the Van der Ven Spence snubbed handshake. Curtis, just very quickly on this, it's quite interesting that the cross-section of opinion, players actually have come out and said, listen, this is much ado about nothing. It seems to have angered, understandably maybe, the supporter base. There's some former chairman I noticed have come out and been very unhappy. But take us into the Van der Ven Spence mindset in that position, because I'm sure you've been in a position where you just wanted to get off the pitch as quickly as possible.
I think there's a high level of frustration. I think the way they played, maybe their individual performances, sometimes players look at themselves in that way rather than be selfish, but they just wanted to get in the change room, get done. I think the thing that Thomas Frank does is he likes his whole team to go around every corner, and listen, that works for some people, maybe with all due respect at Brentford, maybe that worked, when you lose games and stuff like that, but when you're literally booed off the pitch, those players just wanted to get in, reset themselves and be ready to go tonight. Unfortunately for Jed Spence, he hasn't been able to make it, but Mickey Van der Ven's got an opportunity to show how good he is and get the fans back on side.
Yes, let's run through the two sides while we have an opportunity to do so as the Spurs trumpeter strikes up. He is right in the centre of the south stand to our right. The south stand, the cavernous stand, modelled on the Borussia Dortmund stadium, and he's been lit by a spotlight in a Spurs shirt, Spurs cap on. It's always a great part of the Spurs fabric pre-kick-off. And the Spurs fans singing to his tune as the lights brighten, and we now see plenty of mascots surrounding the Champions League flag, the Champions League logo not too far away, and the Spurs players and Copenhagen players beginning to walk out of the dressing room. So the two sides, a boost for Spurs in that club captain Christian Romero is able to start for the first time in a month. He's recovered from a groin injury. and he's one of 5 changes from the side from that 1-0 defeat to Chelsea in the Premier League. Incoming Destiny Udogie, Wilson Odobert, Brennan Johnson and Xavi Simons. So Vicario, the goalkeeper, across the back, Porro, Romero, Van de Ven and Udogie, Sarr and Bentancur behind Odobert, Simons, Johnson, and Kolo Muani making his first Champions League start for Spurs. For Copenhagen, 4th in the Danish Superliga, they started the day, as Curtis alluded to earlier, 32nd in the Champions League table, so that's comfortably in the segment you do not want to be in, the segment that will see you eliminated once 8 games have been played. Their side includes former Southampton and Celtic midfielder Mohamed Elyounoussi, and Jordan Larsson, the son of the legendary Henrik, is in the side. They've made 2 changes from their last league game. That was a 3-2 win over Fredericia. Gabriel Pereira returns from illness, comes in at centre-back, and Robert Silva in midfield is replaced by William Clem. So Katarski is the goalkeeper, a back 4 of Suzuki, Pereira, Hadziakos and Lopez, Larson, Laraja, Clem and Achuri the midfield, Mukoko and Elyounoussi. And Yusufa Mukoko, a name you might be familiar with, he's been tipped for bigger and better things, the German international. And here come the 2 sides, led out by today's Belgian referee Eric Lambrechts in a lurid yellow outfit, his assistants with him. Spurs led out by skipper Christian Romero and Lucas Laraja, the very experienced Danish midfielder, leading out Copenhagen. So kick-off not too far away. One final word from Thomas Frank on Copenhagen. Let's hear from the Spurs boss on tonight's opposition and their current run of form.
Of course, I follow the results and the league, so I know how results are every week. I still have good colleagues, friends working in different clubs. Knowing obviously also a lot of people in Copenhagen. So I know, of course, Copenhagen is not in their best place, but it's a very good team. They have very good European experience. I expect it to be a difficult game, and always that's my little bit go-to. No matter a team, if they're in form or they are out of form, the next game is the one that everything can change in. So we prepare like normal, very, very aware of the strength of Copenhagen, and of course some areas we like to exploit. So that's how I take. I know Jakob Nistrup very well. He's a very good coach. He knows what he's doing with his coaching staff. So I expect a tough challenge and a tough tactical challenge.
Thomas Frank, the Spurs head coach, on the challenge posed by Copenhagen. 4th in the Danish Superliga. They have struggled this season. 6 points behind leaders AGF. They were top on the last day of August, but have slumped to 4th after a run of only 1 win in 6 games. That win did come in their last league game against recently promoted Fredericia, but they do not travel well. They have only won 2 of their previous 21 away matches in the Champions League. They've won only 2 of their last 15 Champions League group stage games, full stop, and they've never won away to an English opponent in Europe. They've lost 7 of their 9 attempts. Curtis, and it's statistics like that which will put Spurs as heavy favourites for this game. What will be key for tonight? What do you think Thomas Frank will want to see? And more importantly, what would he want to see better than what he saw on Saturday?
Attacking impetus. I think that's what it needs to be. Listen, he's Danish, he knows all about FC Copenhagen, and he's a very obviously astute manager, so we know that. But he'll want to concentrate on his team and what they do tonight. The likes of Xavi Simons still waiting for his first goal, Kolo Muani waiting for his first goal. He'll want those players to see tonight as a great opportunity to get out there, not only score a goal, but to score on this Champions League stage and get themselves going. It's so important for these Spurs fans to understand that this team can go forward, can score goals, and no more of those games like the weekend with Chelsea where they look so void of ideas, void of players that can change a game, and they'll want to make sure they change that narrative tonight.
And for all we talk about Spurs' struggles domestically, in Europe, no problem, unbeaten in 21 home European games, losing just 1 of their last 15 European matches, and of course that encompassed plenty of the Europa League success last season. The Copenhagen fans in terrific voice opposite us, they're waving their scarves. When the Champions League anthem was played, they all raised their scarves above their heads. They'll be making plenty of noise. Looking around the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, there are plenty of empty seats, it has to be said. The right at the top, the periphery of the stands, opposite us, the East Stand and the South Stand, Curtis, there are blue seats, and that is a surprise given this is a Champions League fixture.
Yeah, I spoke to one of my friends, and he's a Spurs fan. He's meant to be coming tonight, and he decided not to. So I think there's a few fans that maybe have just turned their nose up maybe at the opposition, a little bit of snobbery maybe, but yeah, for me Champions League nights are very, very special, and to obviously be here and be part of any of them would be an honour for anyone to go watch their club doing that.
We are underway on 5 Sports Extra. Tottenham kicking from right to left, so that's away from the vociferous South Stand in their home strip. The white from head to toe, there's a little bit of blue trim running down the side of the shoulders, and they're in early possession with the returning Christian Romero. Copenhagen in a dark green with black shorts and black socks, defending the goal away to our left-hand side, and watching Spurs with very early possession, and you wouldn't be at all surprised if this is very much the pattern of the game. Copenhagen in an old-fashioned 4-4-2, but bearing in mind the things that have come into fashion, maybe we'll see more of it moving forward. Ball in from the left-hand side, Hotspur. Front post defending was done astutely by Gabriel Pereira, and it's the first corner of the game for Spurs.
Good bit of work there early on from Udogie. He's blasted forward into the back line and played a nice 1-2 with Kolumani. Couldn't get his ball just past the front post, but it's a corner early on for Spurs and a chance to test the keeper.
And what Spurs would do for an early goal just to settle down the crowd, who are in fine voice early on. A minute and a half played. First opportunity for Spurs to test the Danish back line. Pedro Porro, left arm aloft, with his right foot delivers towards the back post. There's a free man there, and it was perhaps Sarr who didn't really control, and had he got that touch slightly better, it was a free shot on goal.
Yeah, and being at the angle that we are, you could tell that they were doing something, because there was a big bunch of them. They were just trying to block the man at the back post so that Sarr could be free, but he takes a really heavy touch, and that's a big opportunity missed. I wasn't sure if the referee might have blown for something if it had gone in, because it seemed to be a slight nudge, but yeah, really poor touch from Sarr, and Copenhagen able to clear their lines.
Almost like he didn't really know what to do with it, whether to shoot first time on the volley or head it back across goal.
Yeah, but the mad thing is, if they've worked on that, because it did look very much planned, he should be prepared, even if it's a safety side foot back towards goal. But yeah, never looked comfortable at all.
Throw to Spurs, Udogie will take it and throws it back into his own half, where Van de Ven square to Romero. Crucial for Spurs to keep those two fit for as long as possible. Very much the first choice centre halves. Kevin Danzo is on a relatively youthful Tottenham Hotspur bench. Ben Davies is still out injured. Coming in from the left is Hotspur, and now Sarr going through a couple of gaps, trying to link up with Simons. This has been a bright Spurs start. Oh, and Simons and Hotspur getting in each other's way there, and had one or t'other taken that on, there may have been a free shot on goal.
Well, it was Kolumani. Yeah, the two that haven't scored seemed to their eyes seemed to light up there, thinking there was an opportunity, and they got in each other's way. But communication needs to be better. But Spurs have started really well, moving the ball quick into those final thirds. The way that Copenhagen are playing this 4-4-2 in a mid-block, but they're very passive. They're allowing the balls to go wide, and it's giving the likes of Hotspur and Udogie lots of spaces down his left-hand side to break forward.
Hotspur coming in field, uses Sarr, and now Bentancur with one fluid pirouette finds the bright-booted Porro, and back in field it goes for Spurs to move this attack from right to left. Now it's with Mickey van de Ven and Romero inside the centre circle. So Tottenham 0, Copenhagen 0, 5 Sports Extra, 5 Live for the latest instalment of Liverpool and Real Madrid, with Trent Alexander-Arnold starting on the bench. 5 Live for that one, and there's a smattering of EFL games as well, and we'll keep you across all of them, and the Champions League games as well. Udogie, useful position, left-hand side of the penalty area, was just cramped for room. Suzuki, the Japanese right back for Copenhagen, doing some good work, and now Papsar running cross-country. Porro, the whistles from the Copenhagen fans, who are not too far away from this attack that now is changed direction. Porro to Romero, and Curtis, this is very much the pattern I think we anticipated. Spurs with all of the ball, and Copenhagen sitting very deep.
Yeah, you don't expect much else from them. They've not been in great form themselves. They'll just be looking for transitions really tonight. They know that Spurs are going to have a lot of the ball. Do you try and out-football them, or do you have a game plan to do something different? Obviously with Moukoko up top, they're hoping that when they do break away, they're able to break away at pace, and here they go. And
almost on point, here is Moukoko, who feeds it down the inside left channel for the Tunisian Elias Achuri to run onto. His low ball in, deflected by Porro, and out for Copenhagen's first corner. And demonstrating your point beautifully there, Curtis, the quick transition, and suddenly Copenhagen have their first corner of the game.
Yeah, but because they're playing this 4-4-2 and they're banking up, fair enough once they bank up, but they've still got two up front. So when they play the ball forward, Moukoko can't be smothered because there's two defenders against two strikers. El Yunusi runs away to create the space. Moukoko turns, drives into the half, and then he rolls it down the outside for Achuri, and then they get the corner,
which will be taken by the former Southampton and Celtic man El Yunusi. Gets it back from a short option, momentarily headed away, and the volley was really nicely hit by Jordan Larsson. Straight at Vicario, but connected well, and had that taken a little nick, that could have easily ended in the back of the net.
Yeah, it was one of those. He literally had lined it up from the edge of the box, the right hand side of the D. He'd lined it up for about 5 seconds before, waiting for it to come down.
Nice ball for Kolo Muani to run onto. His first touch was good, but suddenly surrounded by 3 Copenhagen players, and then he ran into traffic, and there were several green shirts able to rob him of possession.
It's good. His touch was almost too good. Yeah. It was actually, he absolutely gemmed it, brought it down unbelievably into his feet, where actually he probably wanted it to be just slightly ahead of him so he can run onto it and burst through. But yeah, he's starting to show signs. The run in behind, the ball in behind, they're starting to show signs that yes, he's doing the right things, the positive things, and Spurs fans will start getting off their feet.
Still looking for his first goal in a Spurs shirt, his first Champions League start for Tottenham. He came off the bench against Villarreal in Monaco. Spurs beating Villarreal, getting a draw against Monaco. They had Vicario to thank for that. Monaco with several excellent chances. And Kolo Muani started the game at the weekend against Chelsea before a 73rd minute change. And he, a bit like Mathys Tel, who isn't registered in the Champions League squad, Xavi Simons, you feel the more they can play and the more they can get used to the way Spurs like to operate, then they could yet be very, very astute signings.
Yeah, they're players that we've been impressed with in other countries, but ultimately the Premier League, and obviously this is still the Champions League, but the Premier League and the style of football is totally different.
Lovely turn, Udogie, who's now in field, creating space for Simons, onto his right foot, shoots right-footed, deflected wide, corner. And there was a pocket of space for Simons to operate there. It was Udogie's excellent work to set him up, and his right foot shot deflected wide.
Yeah, Udogie does really well. He tucks himself inside the pitch and just turns, holds off the defender, rolls inside, and Simons takes it on just from the edge of the box, and he strikes. He's lucky, to be honest, he gets the deflection because it probably was going wide. Didn't look confident hitting it, but he's in the right area and he had the confidence to at least take the shot.
And that's the sort of space you want Simons to be operating in, just outside the penalty area. Another corner for Spurs. 8 minutes played, 0-0 with Copenhagen. It's the same side, and there's a queue of Spurs players at the back post. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are ready to burst into space, awaiting this Porro delivery. And it's into the heart of the penalty area. That's a commanding header away by Laraja. Udogie will pick it up in the centre of the Spurs midfield. Now the ball into the right channel. It's a lovely pass. Porro with a chance to pull it back. And Kolo Muani was there as well, and eventually hacked clear. And it was Brennan Johnson who had the recipient of the pass that was really well hit, and once again, a bit like Sarr before him, was caught in a couple of minds as to what to do.
Yeah, the touch wasn't good enough. It's Odebear that's the last defender, and Johnson, you can see in his face there, disappointed with himself because he just tries to take the soft touch in front of himself, totally misses it, and in the end the chance goes. But Spurs asking the questions of Copenhagen already, and if this touch gets right, it's gonna be a long night for Copenhagen to hang on and defend.
Yeah, Thomas Frank will be pleased with the start his Tottenham side have made. Still waiting for the breakthrough, 0-0 with Copenhagen, but they are very much on the front foot, and the majority of the game so far is being played in the Copenhagen half. The heavily tattooed Romero, square to Porro, and further on to Johnson, who's a couple of yards in from the touchline on that far side, the right. Spurs going from right to left. Romero seen plenty of the ball. The give and go with Bentancur. Porro keeps the move down the line going. But that avenue is a little bit congested because Copenhagen have plenty of players back, and it's all the way back with Romero to start things off again for Spurs. In the Championship, Ipswich 1, Watford 1. Jadon Philogene has equalised for Ipswich after Imran Louza had given Watford the lead. Simons was bundled to the floor, but no free kick, says the referee. Sarr wins it back for Spurs, lifted into the path of Simons, a little too intricate, and Dominik Kotarski all in pink for Copenhagen retrieves the ball and can just calm things down for Copenhagen, because they've not been able to play much football in these opening 10 minutes.
No, they haven't. They're trying to play out now, but in the end they've just launched one forward to Larson, which Udogie easily deals with. And yes, Spurs will get the ball back and dominate possession again, but thinking about the Brendan Johnson touch, I think that might have been his first touch in the game, to be honest. A lot has come down this left-hand side, so it doesn't surprise me maybe that he missed up on it, but the run was good and he needs to keep making those runs.
The big diagonal for Odegaard to collect, and he got there, but his first touch not as sure as it needed to be. His thumb in the air to applaud the idea, but he couldn't keep it in play, and Copenhagen have a goal kick.
Yeah, even though because they're playing a mid block, they're not really playing a low block that's stopping space in behind. They're still able to play those balls in behind Tottenham, and they've had a couple there. Odegaard, if he just was in the first mind of just taking the touch forward rather than trying to bring it under control. It's definitely a good opportunity for Spurs to get in behind rather than having to play through them.
Also in the Championship, Oxford United 0, Stoke City 1. Lewis Baker with the goal for a Stoke side having a good season. Thrashed Bristol City on the weekend and won up away at Gary Rowett's Oxford United. And in the Champions League, one of the heavyweight clashes which you get every game week. There's one at Anfield currently, which is still 0-0 on 5 Live. Liverpool, Real Madrid, Paris Saint-Germain 0, Bayern Munich 1 in the French capital. So the Champions League holders behind, and it's the former Liverpool winger Luis Diaz who has scored there. Here at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on a surprisingly mild evening, and Curtis Davis is in a t-shirt to my left just to demonstrate how mild it is. Simon's chest control. Sarr will pick this up and almost runs into Bentancur, but Sarr collects, tries to find Simons, all very tight in that central third, but Copenhagen at the moment have no pressure release, and Spurs can win it back with Van de Ven, who's making progress on this near side, the left. Udogie, who's seen plenty of the ball in the opening 11 minutes. 5 Sports Extra, Tottenham 0, Copenhagen 0. Sarr, square, Porro, plenty of green grass in front of him. He's got Johnson hugging the touchline. Johnson in a slightly lighter pair of boots than Pedro Porro, but still very bright. And that's some good defending from left-back Lopez to bring Copenhagen away. Mokoko's sensible ball back, and this is Hatzidiakos, the Greek centre-half, with the ping to this near side, the right, the Japanese right back. Copenhagen are looking to play when they have the chance, but they're not getting the chance to do it because Spurs are winning the ball back astutely, and they've done it there again.
Yes, Spurs are smothering them when they do get the ball, and I think, yes, Copenhagen are trying to play, but their play is very much hopeful rather than like planned. You know, when Spurs are playing, they're doing intricate moves and kind of know where the next pass is, whereas, you know, Copenhagen are trying what they can and what they see, but yeah, they haven't quite broken through that Spurs line properly yet. It's more been the transition that's allowed them in.
Bentancur and Simons combining nicely in midfield. Simons' final pass wasn't quite hit with the required quality, and the green shirts of Copenhagen can move the ball forward. Mokoko, who has his right wrist heavily strapped, wins the free kick. Mickey van de Ven was in a little bit too keenly, and Copenhagen will have this free kick deep inside their own half. Spurs 0, Tottenham 0 in the Curtis Davis derby. It's Derby 1, Hull City 0. Carlton Morris, what form he's in. Hat-trick against Sheffield United on the weekend, and he's put Derby 1-0 up at Pride Park in the Championship. A ball on that far side of the left for El Yunusi to run onto, but he's a little bit too far ahead of him. Achuri can't keep it in either, and Spurs have it back in their back line. We have a shot of the Copenhagen manager Jakob Niestrup, 37 years old, so one of the younger managers in the Champions League. Came through the club's coaching system after retiring as a player at 25, persistent injuries. He won the league and cup double in his first season in charge a couple of years ago, and repeated it last season with a third place finish sandwiched in between. So this is a good Copenhagen side, but do find the Champions League tends to be a step too far for them, and certainly in the opening 13-14 minutes we can see why, although they have the ball now with Mokoko, who was fouled on halfway after a brief hesitation from the referee. It looked like he was allowing play to continue, but back we come for this Copenhagen free kick.
Yeah, I think it was quite a clear free kick, but he did try and see if there was a chance for a transition, which didn't happen. But coming back to Copenhagen and their struggles in the Champions League, when you think of the Danish sides nowadays and the difference in the money in the Premier League and all the other leagues, it's totally different. Plus, they go into a winter break soon, where they've got 3 Champions League games in their winter break that they don't play another league game. So trying to keep that momentum whilst, you know, you're training and waiting for games to come up, it must be a really difficult thing, and yeah, that's probably another reason why they struggle.
Copenhagen loose in midfield, Kolo Muani winning possession and then was fouled by Gabriel Pereira. One of those you could probably file under good foul, because Kolo Muani had a free run at the back four, but it means that the centre-back will have to play the remaining 75 minutes of this game on a yellow card.
Yeah, that's a tough one for a centre-half. Listen, they're quite compact. That's the first time they've kind of been quite open. The way that Kolo Muani got through in the first place shouldn't have happened, so Gabriel's had to take one for the team there, but he's going to have to be on tenterhooks. He should be able to protect himself because of the shape of the team, the way they're banking up into those two banks of fours. But listen, if it gets to half-time and he's made another foul, his manager might have a decision to make where maybe he goes and brings Garanga on to see out the game. Yeah,
Gabriel Pereira, key cog in his Copenhagen side. He's played every game bar one, and that was actually the last game against Fredericia. He was ill for that. But he is a rock in the heart of Copenhagen's defence, alongside the Greek international Pantelis Hadzidiakos. So this Spurs free kick is dead centre. It's almost equidistant between penalty area and centre circle, but Pedro Porro is shaping up to shoot, and he does shoot, hits it well, and a couple of yards over the top. You have to hit those perfectly, really, to beat the goalkeeper from that sort of distance, and it wasn't far off perfect, but a couple of yards over.
Yeah, whenever I see a player line up and it's not Gareth Bale or Juninho back in the day, you know, I always wonder what you're doing, to be honest. But Pedro Porro caught it really well. It was always going over, and probably the keeper would have had it covered because it didn't have much dip or whip on it. So yeah, it would have been covered, but still was a good hit.
Pedro Porro, who is on the front cover of today's Champions League programme, started all three Champions League games. In fact, he started the majority of Spurs games during his time here, fourth season. And he played more minutes than anyone else in a Spurs shirt last season, and he's featured in every single game this season across the competitions, the League Cup, which Spurs were eliminated from midweek at Newcastle, the Champions League, the Premier League, soon to be the FA Cup as well. Here comes Spurs again, left-hand side. It's Udogi into the penalty area, up against Suzuki, and his left foot shot was well saved by Katarski at his front post. Udogi, waiting for options in the middle, decided that the left foot drive was his best option. It's a decent save from Katarski, but one you'd expect him to make.
Yeah, it's a good hit from Udogi. Probably goes through Suzuki's legs, but straight at Katarski, so an easy save to make. But what was pleasing about Spurs there is Copenhagen went on the press and actually went after them that time, and they played out really, really well through Pedro Porro into the midfield. Turned out Xavi Simon played the ball out wide, and Udogi probably, again, a little bit more patient, maybe could have put his foot on the ball and picked out somebody else, but chose the shot and straight at Katarski.
Promising signs for Tottenham, but still goalless on 5 Sports Extra. Spurs 0, Copenhagen 0, and we have played 17, nearly 18 minutes in North London. Copenhagen, though, despite Spurs' pressure, have just started to string a few passes together, and it is with their centre midfielder Lucas Laraja, one of the more experienced players in this Copenhagen side. This appearance, number 213 for Copenhagen. On the far side, the left, is El Yunusi, and infield to William Clem, who is Laraja's centre midfield partner. This is the furthest Copenhagen have been with possession, but that's a loose pass from Gabriel, straight through the centre third and into the feet of Bentancur. And now all of a sudden there's a great run from Johnson, who's around the goalkeeper, but his angle is tight, slides it in! It's a brilliant finish from Brennan Johnson to give Tottenham Hotspur the lead against Copenhagen. The Danes loose in midfield, the pass was perfect, Johnson took it around the goalkeeper, but the angle was tight. He still had so much to do, but he slides it into the bottom corner to make it Tottenham 1, Copenhagen 0.
And it's good work from Brennan Johnson, makes absolutely no mistake. For the first time in the game, Copenhagen has started to get a little bit of confidence, started to try and play, but when it breaks down, it falls to Xavi Simons, and he just rolls a ball down the side for Brennan Johnson. And it's not, the run is good, but what makes the decision is Katarski comes steaming out, was never getting there, and just allows Brennan Johnson from a tight angle, yes, but once he gets past, it's one where you expect him to score, and ultimately he does, and Spurs lead this 1-0.
The ball from Simons was excellent, but I'm sure the goalkeeper, if he was to have that all over again, would probably stay where he was, because it was his decision to come herring off his line. He's nowhere near it either. Brennan Johnson knew exactly what he needed to do, and still had a lot to do once he'd taken it round him, because the finish was right-hand side of the penalty area. He was almost outside of the box, Brennan Johnson. He was that far wide. In fact, he was outside the box. Good finish. In fairness, had he not gone in, I'm sure Odebear was tapping in at the back post. Either way, Spurs lead, 20 minutes played, and you'd think that will settle them down.
It should do, and it also makes Copenhagen have something to do as well. Will they sit back and absorb it for longer and still try and play on transitions, or will they go after him? So that will be interesting to see. But it's interesting because what we spoke about Brennan Johnson not having many touches, I think that might have been the second touch he had.
Yeah.
So the fact that he was able to be so composed once he took it around Katarski, showed that he's a great bit of confidence. And listen, the Spurs fans now, you can hear them in the background. They're getting more excited, and they want to see a few more goals tonight to make up for the poor showing on the weekend.
Johnson's 4th goal of the season. He made his 100th Spurs appearance against Chelsea on Saturday. 18 goals he finished with last season. He was Spurs' top scorer, and it's good on him, because you might remember the start of last season, he'd become the fans' boo boy, hadn't he? He'd been under immense pressure from the fans, who for one reason or another didn't really appreciate what he was offering, and he came off social media, and since that decision he went on a brilliant goal scoring run, and now he is one of Spurs' better performing players, certainly of the last couple of seasons.
I think you know what you're going to get from Brennan. I've played against him when he was in Nottingham Forest. He's a player that, yes, he's got good qualities in the front areas, but he'll keep working. He'll run up and down that channel. He'll help back when he's needed to. So he's got that level of humility in his game as well, which, I don't know, sometimes maybe if he's a bit more arrogant, maybe people would maybe respect him a little bit more. But yeah, he's a good player, and yeah, to score 18 goals in a season for any team is good, but for the Spurs team to be top scorer just shows how important he was last season. Particularly, let's say, I'm not sure he scored the goal, but he'll claim the goal that won them the Europa League and allows them to be in this competition.
Copenhagen moving forward with a little bit more promise. However, the pass that El Yunusi attempted to play down the line was blocked, so it's all the way back in the Copenhagen back line. Gabriel Pereira exchanges passes with Laraja, and now Marcos Lopez, the Peruvian international, exchanges passes with El Yunusi. And Spurs have every single player behind the ball as they watch Copenhagen patiently move the ball around. It's with the Greek centre-half Hatzidiakos playing through the central third, but Papsar in very industriously to dispossess Moukoko. Simons onto Kolo Muani. First touch to get away from Moukoko, who tried to recover. Now Udogi joining in the attack. He needs to think quickly and does just that. Sarr has more time and space than Udogi was afforded, and now Van de Ven on halfway for Spurs to start again from the back, leading this game by 1-0. Stoke now have a second away at Oxford United. Stephen Nzonzi has scored. Birmingham 1-up against Millwall, another of Curtis's former teams. Peck has scored for Birmingham City, and in the Champions League, Sporting lead away at Juventus. Juventus 0, Sporting 1. A team in Birmingham City, Curtis, that you did enjoy European exposure with, and in fact the three teams you played in Europe for, Villa in the old UEFA Cup, Birmingham and Hull City, so you chose your spells at Birmingham and Hull very nicely, because two sides that aren't exactly littered with European heritage.
Yeah, I think if you told me I was ever going to play European football, is one thing, but then to play it in the Championship, that was really interesting. Obviously, having won the Carabao Cup, or sorry, whatever cup it was at the time, the League Cup, and then obviously to be relegated was devastating. But the European trips and everything that went on that season, I think we played a total of 62 games, so it was an exciting season. But unfortunately, we fell short in the playoffs, and that was always going to be the bread and butter.
Yes, your header against Blackpool in the semi-final at St Andrews.
Oh, don't remind me.
Thought that might just be the one that would have got Birmingham there, but yeah, that was some season. And in fact, Birmingham that year had a very good spell in Europe. I think you finished on something like 10 points. You were very unlucky not to qualify into the knockouts. Spurs moving forward nicely again. Udogi corner of the penalty area. Spurs leading this game 1-0, and they've looked good for that lead as well. Simons just outside the box, exchanging passes with Sarr. Udogi seen plenty of it near side the left. Simons beginning to be busy in that midfield, getting on the ball more often. Sarr taking it away from the penalty area in order to keep the ball, and Simons has it back. Slows it down, he's stopped it stationary. Sarr offers, and now backwards of square to Christian Romero. PSG have equalised against Bayern Munich, and it's the recent Ballon d'Or winner Ousmane Dembele who has equalised at the Parc des Princes. So Paris Saint-Germain 1, Bayern Munich 1, and Olympiacos in front now against PSV Eindhoven, both of those in the Champions League. 25 minutes in, Tottenham 1, Copenhagen 0, and this does have a feel of a game that if Tottenham can just get that final pass right, then there could be a few goals here for them. Sarr away from several challenges, Udogie round the corner, that's one for Odegaard to chase. Gabriel wins his header just outside the penalty area. Van de Ven will calm things down, and at the moment Spurs in complete control of this one.
Yeah, in control, very patient. They're willing to try and let Copenhagen come onto a little bit, but here they're in again. Udogie down the side.
Yeah, lovely ball from Odegaard, and here is Udogie spaced across. He had numbers. Simons, Sarr was there. Johnson wasn't too far off. In the end, very well defended by William Clem. Out of play it goes for a corner.
Yeah, really frustrating because Van de Ven plays this ball down the left-hand side to Odegaard. Odegaard flicks it around the corner to Udogie, and Udogie can continue to drive into the box, but there's literally 5 Tottenham players running into the box against 3 Copenhagen players. Chooses the wrong option, but they have won a corner and a chance to go and test the keeper again.
That Paris Saint-Germain goal has been ruled out by VAR, so still Paris Saint-Germain 0, Bayern Munich 1. Porro, corner, near side the left. Again, several players congregate at the back post for Spurs. Now they all burst into the box, into the front post, and the back post guardian was Sarr again, but this time well headed away. Odegaard picks up the pieces. The ball on the right-hand side with the goal scorer Johnson. Beats his man. He will keep this in play. Ding to the back post. Sarr's header is over the bar. Difficult one because he was a good 14, 15 yards out. His cushioned header was never on target and always dropping over.
Yeah, good work from Brennan Johnson just on the right-hand side of the box. Just uses his pace, doesn't try to do any skills, stands up the defender, takes it to the byline, and just the old school what Aaron Lennon used to do for Peter Crouch, just thinks it, hangs it up, and it goes to Pap Sarr, and he just tries to, as he does, tries to get too much on it because he needs to put power on it, and unfortunately for him, just gets the wrong angle, goes high over. But again, promising for Spurs, that creating chances, definitely an XG of more than 0.05 today, and yes, they'll want to keep this up because 1-0 is okay, you know, but we saw in the Villarreal game where they were 1-0 up, and then as the game got later and later, it was very uncomfortable. So I think they'll want to get a second goal, make sure the game's sewn up, and then it might afford Thomas Frank the chance to maybe make a couple of changes, bring on people, give people a rest, maybe bring on some of the young lads, because obviously the injury list that they've got already with Kudus, Gray, Ben Davis, all the injuries, he'll want to protect as many of them as possible for what's coming up in Manchester United and Arsenal, then followed by PSG.
Yeah, they've got a big few games coming up of Tottenham, as Curtis alluded to, with Manchester United, the early kick-off here on Saturday, then the international break, then it's Arsenal, and then Paris Saint-Germain away is Spurs' next Champions League game after this one. They're moving into the top 8 as things stand, but here come Copenhagen, far side the left. That's a really well-timed challenge to prevent Marcos Lopez surging into the box. But Spurs have to just think about this, and they've given the ball away just outside the penalty area. Romero in quickly, and then Johnson played a ball, and a rather errant pass out to the right, and then with his hands outstretched indicated just, a bit needless that, lads. We just needed to calm that down and play out from the back a little bit more smoother. And the end result of all of that is a Copenhagen throw level with the edge of the Spurs penalty area. Yeah,
really loose there. Romero plays a good ball into Bentancur, but Bentancur just seemed to think he'd had acres of space and ends up passing it away. And he's lucky that as Lopez takes the touch, it's in favour of Romero, because if it's a little bit shorter, with these strikers nowadays with VAR, they just get the slightest touch and could have gone over Romero. So got away with one there, but now they're setting up for a long throw, and let's see how Tottenham deal with this.
The in vogue long throw is short, it's not long, it was the dummy. Lopez gets it back, left hand side of the penalty area, decent cross in, it's flicked to the back post where Makoko can't sort his feet out, and then got a little fortunate with some ricochets that fell his way. His left foot scuff shot was comfortable for Vicario, and in the midst of all that there was a knock for Brennan Johnson. He's okay, gingerly back to his feet, and Vicario will give the ball to the referee. for some reason. It'll be a drop ball, and the score remains Tottenham 1, Copenhagen 0.
Yeah, it was a nice decoy on the long throw there, because they managed to load the bases and get as many big people up from the back into the box, and then as they played it, it's a good ball in, and I think it's Romero at the front post that just managed to get a flick that prevented the line of players wanting to head it, and then Moukoko couldn't quite sort out his feet, got the strike away in the end, but wasn't as clean as he wanted, and a very, very easy save for Vicario.
Udogie and Bentancur lose their way, trying to build from the back, and it's with Suzuki, the Japanese right back, Yonosuke Suzuki, who has spent more time in his normal right back home. He does like to get forward, as is very much the way of the modern fullback. It's with the left back, Marcos Lopez, in his green shirt with his yellow boots, the Peruvian international. Suzuki on this near side, the right. Direct ball in field. The left foot strike early from Jordan Larson, and it may reach Achuri on that far side, and he lets it run out of play. Copenhagen have a corner and are just beginning to build their own pressure. Yeah, it's a hopeful chance rather than a good chance for Larson, but we've seen him hit some nice balls, and as he gets to the deflection, Pedro Porro had to be careful, because as Achuri started running out to it, he was going to get his body across whatever happens. Pedro Porro does the right thing, but it is another corner for Copenhagen, and Spurs are going to have to make sure they defend it. The two Copenhagen centre-halves, Hatzidiakos, Gabriel Pereira, right in the heart of the Tottenham penalty area. Vicario in his baby blue goalkeeping shirt comes and claims and collects very comfortably, and that'll do him the world of good.
Really good claim. You love that as a centre-half, when a goalkeeper comes, he shouts for it and he literally takes everything. So really good claim from him, comfortable, held on to it, and yeah, that always gives you as a centre-half and a defender, when he's behind you, that extra bit of confidence.
2 clean sheets in his 3 Champions League games this season, Vicario against Bodo Glimt and against Monaco. Spurs, though, have just lost a little bit of fluidity, and Copenhagen can sense that there may be an opportunity. Suzuki's right foot cross or shot, somewhere in between, was too far in front of Moukoko, too far wide of Vicario's right post, and now the player goes for a goal kick. 1-0 Tottenham, 31 minutes.
I'd be really interested to see another angle of that, because Suzuki took it on and it did go about 3 yards wide, but I think Vicario was kind of unsighted, because if it had maybe gone on target, he might not have seen it till the last minute, because it was one that we didn't really thought he might put a ball into the box, but he just hit it and it's gone wide. But I think Vicario was having a little bit of a go at the players in front of him, like any chance of closing down, which it does seem that he might have been shocked with that if it did go on target. But yeah, the goal from Brennan Johnson, the difference at the moment, but Spurs very comfortable at the moment, all hopeful opportunities for Copenhagen, and just as I said, that Pedro Porro nearly makes a mistake, and that's what they've got to make sure they don't do tonight, is make any mistakes and give Copenhagen any kind of confidence in this game. Yeah,
they've just been a fraction loose with the ball, Tottenham, in the last 5 or 6 minutes. Udogie wins a good free kick, actually, because the ball was fired into him at some pace in the left back area, and not only did he control, he got his body in between man and ball, and then wins Spurs the free kick, and rather sensibly here, you fancy Curtis. I think Mickey van der Ven is just saying, let's just maybe go long and get a bit of respite, and he does go long, and it's Brennan Johnson who picks it up on that far side, the right, inside the Tottenham half and infield to Bentancur. Birmingham now 2 up at home to Millwall. Damari Gray has scored right on the stroke of half-time. Sheffield United are 1 up at Coventry. Coventry 0, Sheffield United 1. And there's a latest score that sums up the championship if ever there was. Top against bottom, although Coventry, who did lose on the weekend, Sheffield United, who were beaten heavily on the weekend, but Sheffield United 1 up at Coventry City in the championship. Suzuki, jet black hair flopping, ball in field that did Laraja absolutely no favours, and Sarr dispossesses him easily enough, and Tottenham have it straight back. Yeah, that's a frustration, is when FC Copenhagen were actually quite comfortable there. Suzuki could have made a simple pass into his feet, Laraja, and he just ended up just playing a bit too high and just gave him absolutely no chance. Papsar was right on his toes to nick the ball, and again they lose the ball just outside their box. Can Spurs capitalise this time? It's Simons on the edge, and Alderweireld takes it off him. Fancy the communication was not quite as tight as it needed to be there, and Spurs relinquish another good position. Romero's direct ball cleared, and he'll have it back again, or rather Van der Ven will have it back again That's frustrating as a head coach, because once or twice Spurs have got themselves in that position and it's just broken down.
You can tell it's really good when you have players that are dovetailing across each other, trying to get into the little spaces and cross over, but there needs to be that communication. You can tell these players haven't played enough together. Xavi Simons and Odegaard just then getting in each other's way. Kolo Muani and Xavi Simons earlier getting in each other's way. On the far side, when there was a ball played out, I think it was Odegaard and Xavi Simons again getting in each other's way. So, just that little bit of communication, just a shout. But obviously, listen, they're all desperate to get goals. They're all desperate to make headlines. But you're better as a team if you can just have that one word to say, my ball, your ball, whatever it is, and actually create a chance for the team.
Kolo Muani coming very deep to win the ball and then finds Udogie, but the flag up on that far side. So Copenhagen will have this free kick in their right back area. Tottenham 1, Copenhagen 0. You can hear just about the Copenhagen fans with the Icelandic clap. I know they're from Denmark, but it was the Icelandic clap. Iceland made it famous first. Curtis has found something. 2-0 Bayern Munich. Yes, indeed. Luis Diaz has scored again for Bayern Munich away at Paris Saint-Germain. So PSG 0, Bayern Munich 2 Luis Diaz goals. In the Championship, Blackburn lead away at Bristol City, and Leicester have just taken the lead against Middlesbrough. So a couple of big games taking place in the Championship between sides that are either at the top end of the table or sides that really need a win down towards the bottom. Van der Ven under pressure, fouled by Laraja, who points to the ball, but referee was very close to that and gives Spurs a free kick. But it's not quite as fluid as it was in the opening 15-20 minutes for Tottenham, and whether that's something that Spurs aren't doing, or maybe it's something that Copenhagen are now doing.
Copenhagen are getting higher up the pitch and trying to get after him, but Spurs are playing into it. A sloppy 30 seconds there where they could have either made a simple pass. You see there Van der Ven's trying to dribble across his whole line, actually gets away with one because Laraja did get a touch on the ball and they could have been in. So Spurs just need to make sure they're not victims of themselves today, because again it's been so comfortable. There's not been a lot that Copenhagen have done. They've huffed and puffed with a couple of long range efforts or set pieces, but this is all Tottenham's to take and to go and do more with. If they don't go and get this second goal, they'll be devastated, and the more and more you keep doing that and then taking those risks, you always give them a chance to get back in.
Kolo Muani looking to get on the end of a long ball forward that Hadziakos allowed to bounce dangerously. Simons to Odegaard. Wasn't quite the right pass, but Odegaard retrieves the ball before it rolls over the line for a Copenhagen goal kick. Now Udogie, infield to Sarr. The move is going backwards, and what was a very promising position is now back to the status quo, and you can again file that under a number of nearly moments for Tottenham. Had that final pass been right, then Spurs could easily be leading this game 2 or 3.
Yeah, it was Kolo Muani does really well because the ball's played into him and it kind of loops up in the air. Just does well just to put his body into Gabriel. He just backs into him, makes sure he doesn't foul him, and then it lands to Xavi Simons. But here, Xavi Simons takes the touch and he looks like he might shoot, but Odegaard just never ever tries to make his mind up for him by making a deliberate movement. He kind of stands there and watches him rather than making a peeled out movement to the left hand side to try and say give me the ball. And from there again, the miscommunication means the chance is gone, and now Copenhagen on a break. Being led by Achuri, who goes for goal from 35 yards out. Not sure that was the right decision from the Tunisian international. He was running at pace, he cuts in field, and his right foot shot was always rising and comfortably over the crossbar. Yeah, it was a bad decision because Lopez had made a bombing run down the outside. Really should have played him in because there's two people standing in front trying to block his shot. If he plays Lopez on the outside, he can potentially go on the second one, but he takes a shot on from 30 yards and it goes about 10 yards over the bar. So wasted opportunity there for Copenhagen, but again a sign that if Tottenham don't put this game to bed, there's always that little opening on the counter-attacks. Nice ball from Bentancur through a third, and Simons had much more time than he anticipated, and he went for a rather flamboyant flick around the corner. It didn't really work out, and now El Yunusi's being fouled by Kolo Muani, and that will be a free kick and a yellow card for Randall Kolo Muani, and he remonstrates with Eric Lambrecht, throws his arms in the air. He's saying it's one, but it's soft, but ultimately when you pull somebody back, it's always going to be, and that's the way the rule is. Unfortunately, it was soft, but once he pulled him from his hip when he was already away from him, he was always going to get the yellow card if El Yunusi wasn't able to continue that move. So Kolo Muani into the book along with Gabriel Pereira for Copenhagen.
Smooth pass in the direction of Audebert, who now comes in field from his left wing home. He's towards the edge of the penalty area. Johnson on the overlap, just inside the box. Johnson, right foot, slows it down. Back to Simons on the edge. The overlapping Porro. Johnson in support. Porro's back post cross. Too deep for everyone in the centre. Sarr will keep this in play near side the left with his yellow boots. Foot on top of the ball. Little triangle between Simons, Udogie, now Van der Ven's involved. Back to Simons, referee's in the way there. He avoids it nicely. Sarr infield, the touch from Audebert, who gets it back. Lovely football, Simons bursts through. Kolo Muani to finish, wide. Oh, it would have been a glorious goal. Lovely football from Spurs, one touch intricacy, and Kolo Muani to roll into the corner, but he rolled it a yard wide.
And here the link-up actually worked. Some great 1-2 play between Audebert and Xavi Simons. Xavi Simons burst into the box and he's in a position where he maybe can have a shot, but he rolls it to the right-hand side of him. And it's Kolo Muani who's just around the penalty spot, thinks he's got himself a goal towards the bottom left-hand corner, and it just goes wide, hits the goalkeeper's bottle, and he's trying to claim a corner, but it's a miss, unfortunately, for him. And the unfortunate thing for him is if he had his head up, Brennan Johnson's on the right-hand side looking for another tap-in. It could have been 2-0 Spurs, but fair play, some good link-up play there after the initial communication problems. That was really good from the pair of them.
It was a fraction behind Kolo Muani, and he took one touch and it just allowed the defender to come across, and he tried to squeeze it into the corner, didn't manage it. And you're right, Brennan Johnson was there too, but the build-up towards that chance was very nicely done. There may have been a bit of fortune involved when Simons burst through a challenge, but good awareness, and Kolo Muani's wait for his first Tottenham goal continues. And with 4 minutes to play until half-time, Tottenham lead this game 1-0. But going back to something you mentioned earlier, Curtis, how many times have we seen this in football where a team dominates, they can't get that second, and we all know how it ends.
Yeah, and FC Copenhagen, not to say they would have come here and been wanting to be 1-0 down, but 1-0 down isn't a score that probably scares them, because they know they're always going to be up against it tonight, and their game plan doesn't change too much. And if anything, Spurs have maybe taken a little bit of a back step and allowed them to control the ball a little bit more. Whether or not they're going to do much with it, they're more rigid than Spurs. Spurs are more fluid with their movements of the rotations, whereas looking at the Copenhagen side from up above, it's quite rigid. They're all in their positions quite set. But ultimately, listen, they're allowing them to have the ball now. They'll start growing confidence, and the longer this goes on, it'll be interesting to see how the crowd go as well.
Yeah, we know that they can be very quick to turn here at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium when things are not going their way. Copenhagen had kept quite neat and tidy possession for a minute or so. They didn't really do a great deal with it, playing it between centre-backs and full-backs and a couple of the deep-lying midfielders, but they've since lost their way. And Tottenham have it with Van der Ven in his own back line. 3 minutes of the first half to play. There won't be many, if any, added on. Maybe the solitary minute to deal with the aftermath of the goal. We've had no substitutions, we've had no lengthy VAR check, so I presume stoppage time will be minimal. And Thomas Frank, you imagine, will be satisfied enough with what he's seen. He would just like a comfort of a second goal. Atletico Madrid lead against Union Saint-Gilloise. Julian Alvarez, the former Manchester City forward, has scored there. And it's half-time in the Championship between Bristol City and Blackburn. Blackburn leading by a goal to nil. Leicester 1 up against Middlesbrough. Ipswich 1, Watford 1. Kotarski, all in pink, the Croatian goalkeeper, I'm sure would have, if he'd had his moment again, done things a little bit differently in the wake of the Brennan Johnson goal. Was a little too keen to come tearing off his line. Laraja in the heart of the Copenhagen midfield. Clem to this near side, the right. Suzuki's first time ball, and now a little bit of space for El Yunusi to get his foot on the ball and have a little survey of the scene. The Norwegian international, 90 appearances he made for Southampton, joining Copenhagen when Saints were relegated in 2023. Now the ball on that far side, the left, with Elias Achuri. Tottenham seem quite content to allow Copenhagen possession, and Copenhagen are quite happy to keep possession albeit they're not causing Spurs any real problems. It's all at walking pace at the moment. Gabriel Pereira to this near side, the right. Suzuki, another loose pass in field, but Laraja makes something of it with a nice flick to Makoko, and now El Yunusi has Marcos Lopez in support. Right foot shot is deflected wide off Achuri via Porro, and Copenhagen will end this first half with a corner.
Yeah, very, very patient work there from Copenhagen. They took their time, they built up, but Spurs very passive in that, and some great work, and the flick from Laraja is actually what opened up the door there. And unfortunately for there with Achuri, if he just maybe took his time a little bit more, he might have been able to open up. But they do have a corner, and heading into half time, it'll be a crucial time to try and get a goal back.
Important moments in this game. 30 seconds of the first half to play. 5 Sports Extra from the BBC. Tottenham 1, Copenhagen 0. The corner is deep towards the back post, and Vicario claims another good one. He was under minimal pressure, but just for a moment it looked like the ball might go over his head, but the Italian adjusted well and makes a good catch.
Yeah, it's a good catch, because if he doesn't catch it, Makoko's there waiting for a tap in at the back stick. But yeah, again, very assured by the keeper there, and he's done all he's needed to do this evening, and that's the 2 catches, and make sure that he's kept his team in the game.
All eyes now on the 4th official, who wanders forward in his green UEFA hoodie and indeed shows us 1 minute of added on time, and we are into that 1 minute now. Porro with some lovely control on the edge of his own penalty area, plucks the ball from the sky and escapes the attention of Achuri. And how ambitious will Spurs be here? You sense not hugely, as they look to keep the ball and keep this 1-goal advantage intact.
Yeah, they're playing the state of the game at the moment. You know, they know they're going into half-time with a 1-0 lead, and that'll be enough for Thomas Frank right now. He'll want more in the second half, definitely, yes, but to finish out the half, control the ball and just stop Copenhagen getting anything, he'll be happy to go in with 1-0.
Porro maybe thinking there could be more on the table here. Great ball in, Kolo Muani heads over. It's another excellent chance for Spurs. It's another excellent chance for Kolo Muani. Simons finds him again with a deliciously floated ball in, and Kolo Muani heads over from no more than 8 yards out.
Oh, has to score. You know, a player of his standards, it's a great ball in from Xavi Simons. Should have had a second assist, and as it lands onto his head, he's in a standing position. He almost can take his time, and he just again tries to put too much power on it, and in the end plays it over. But Kolo Muani's actually had a good half, but that chance and the chance before that, he could have had a couple of goals already, and Spurs could have been out of sight. But yeah, food for thought in the second half, and let's see what this Spurs team brings in the second half, and if they go for it on the front foot or try and hold on to this 1-0.
It was the last action of the first half. Tottenham leading this by 1-0. Brennan Johnson's 4th goal of the season, very nicely taken. Simons found him with the ball down the inside right channel. The danger was still fairly weak from a Copenhagen point of view until Dominik Kotarski, the goalkeeper, racing off his line to try and retrieve. Never going to get there. Johnson took it round him. His touch took him out of the penalty area, but had the awareness to roll it into the far corner. Good finish, and there's no doubt that Spurs deserve this lead because they've had the better chances. Kolo Muani twice with a right foot shot just wide and a header on the stroke of half time, but Copenhagen have shown in glimpses that they have the weapons to disrupt this Tottenham team, and if they don't get a second goal after half-time, it could yet turn into a tricky evening. But at half-time, Thomas Frank will be pleased with certainly the response that his side has shown following Saturday's disappointment.
Yeah, they had to have some kind of response. With all due respect, this opposition isn't going to be nowhere near Chelsea, so there had to be a response. They've done that with the chances and opportunities they created, but that being said, for all the good play and the opportunities and openings they've had, the goal has come from, in my opinion, the goalkeeper's mistake. So they still need to be wary of what they're doing. They still need to be more clinical and more crucial in their moments. But yes, it's about coming out in the second half with the same attitude, same front-footedness, but making sure they keep that back door shut, because a couple of times it's been their sloppiness that has nearly let Copenhagen in, and if Copenhagen get half a sniff, you know, they could get back into this game.
And just a final word on the 2 big chances that Kolo Muani has missed. Really good build-up for the first one. Simons, Kolo Muani rolls it just wide. Great cross from Simons for the header. is this just a striker that needs a goal, and if he gets one, then he might go on to score a few?
Yeah, well, we were looking at his career beforehand, and he seemed to score in bunches. And I think even in his Juventus career, he scored 5 goals in 3 games, and didn't score for 10, then scored another 5 in 7 or something. So it's one of those things that, yes, he needs to get that first goal. He's had 2 really gilt-edged chances, particularly I think the last one was probably easier than the shot. But the main thing is, I think he's played well, he's in the right positions, and if he gets in those positions again, you'd like to think he'll get one at least tonight, because he probably deserves it for his performance.
Curtis Fanaro, thank you very much indeed. Half-time at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Tottenham 1, Copenhagen 0. Brennan Johnson's goal, but no doubt Thomas Frank will be hoping his side can put this game to bed in the second half. And if they were to hang on to a win, or indeed make it more comfortable in the second half, then this result would see Spurs into the top 8. They'd move up to 6th, 8 points from 4 games. Of course, more matches to come tomorrow, but the top 8 qualifying automatically for the last 16, and a playoff spot between numbers 8 and 24, and you'd think Spurs have the quality certainly to finish at least in the top 24, but that's for another time. Half time here at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Tottenham 1, Copenhagen 0. We'll be back for the second half in around 10-15 minutes time. For now, we'll hand you back over to BBC Radio 5 Live.
And give a few concerns to Arne Slot and his staff and his team, but on a whole, Liverpool have been outstanding. It's just that final pass, that final shot at goal. But when they've got Courtois in goal and making outstanding saves like he has, sometimes that's the way it goes.
Well, that last Champions League match of the day that we did, Stephen, when we had Guillaume Balaguer on, didn't we? And he's going to come on a little bit later, saying that, you know, Thibaut Courtois kind of feels affronted that he sort of doesn't get necessarily the recognition at times he deserves for being probably the best goalkeeper in the world. Yeah,
I think Guillaume was saying, wasn't he, that he put a sort of a poll out on social media to say who was the better goalkeeper, Alisson or Courtois, and Alisson won it quite comfortably, and then after the game he got man of the match and was brilliant, and then he messaged back and messaged Guillaume and said, the Liverpool fans respect me now, or something along them lines. And you think, he's a very confident goalkeeper. He knows his capabilities, and so do the Real Madrid team, but also so do Liverpool fans tonight, because it's been a hell of a performance so far.
The Real Madrid threat, Jonathan, only really came in the last sort of 5, 6, 7 minutes, didn't it?
Yeah, Liverpool have really nullified the threat, really. Mbappe hasn't really gotten behind them. Bellingham hasn't made many runs directly at the Liverpool defence. Vinicius Junior has been a threat, but do you know what? Conor Bradley's managed them all right. He's got Gravenberch coming over to try and help. But yeah, they've really struggled, but the shape of the Liverpool team has been really, really good, disciplined. There's no big gaps for Madrid to exploit. So yeah, done
Jonathan,
really well.
Stephen, Ian, back for the second half. Lewis Baker's got his second of the night for Stoke. They are very comfortable indeed, Emily.
Yeah, it's 3 for Stoke, Oxford 0, Stoke 3. Baker, as you say, with his second of the game, on the counter again, offload from the right, into the box, and there he was to slide home. 49 minutes in, Oxford 0, Stoke 3.
Let me give you the other scores in the 7.45s in the Championship, because most of them are back underway. Birmingham are 2-0 up on Millwall. Bristol City trail at home to Blackburn by a goal to 0. Charlton and West Brom are goalless. Derby are 1 up on Hull. Ipswich 1, Watford 1. Leicester lead Middlesbrough by a goal to 0. Half-time at Coventry, where Sheffield United lead. We'll go there shortly. Let's go back to the Champions League. Earlier, remember, Arsenal winning 3-0 away to Slavia Prague. The other half of North London in action this evening. John Southall.
And Tottenham lead Copenhagen by 1 goal to 0 at half-time. It's 1-0. It should be 3. Randall Kolo Muani missed 2 great chances in the final 5 minutes of the half. The first, 8 yards out, put it wide. Then right on half-time, Simon's cross from the right-hand side. There he was. It was on a plate, 5 yards out, unmarked. Headed it over. Horrible miss. The goal, though, on 19 minutes. Copenhagen gave the ball away. Bentancur found Simons, who played in Brennan Johnson on the right-hand side. The keeper came flying out, misjudged it. Johnson skipped round him and tucked it in from a tight angle. Good finish, that 4th of the season. Copenhagen have offered next to nothing, but it is only 1-0. Tottenham 1, Copenhagen 0.
One game in League One this evening. They're into the second half there, and Kyron Lofthouse has just put Burton ahead at Rotherham. Rotherham 0, Burton 1. Back to the Champions League, where they are still playing in the first half between Paris Saint-Germain and Bayern. And Conor McNamara, one Bayern player, has been in the absolute thick of it this first half.
He has. Right, it is not half-time yet. It is Paris Saint-Germain 0, Bayern Munich 2. And for 45 minutes, this was an almost perfect first half for Vincent Kompany. But a late and very significant twist in this tale, because Luis Diaz, who has scored both goals in the game, has been sent off. A straight red card after VAR review. The on-field decision was yellow. It was a challenge from behind. It was a tricky one, and they looked at it for a long time, whether there was that scissors motion to make it serious foul play. Anyway, the red card has been shown. So yes, Bayern Munich have the 2-goal lead, but they've got to play the rest of this game with just 10 men. So 2 goals for the Colombian Luis Diaz, but a red card for him as well. Paris Saint-Germain 0, Bayern Munich 2.
Goals flying in the Championship at the moment. Birmingham now 3 up at home to Millwall. Alex Cochrane has got that, and Hull have equalised at Derby through Joel Ndala. Derby 1, Hull 1. Half-time, as I say, at Coventry, and the leaders are behind. Sani Rajavajula.
They are. Coventry 0, Sheffield United 1. The goal on 25, Sam McCullum bundling in after a flick from a corner from 5 Live Sports own Ben Mee, and he is the difference at the moment. And Sheffield United, remember, starting the game third from bottom, actually looking very good value against a side who were unbeaten until defeat at the weekend against Wrexham. Hadji Wright with a header in first half stoppage time, the closest Coventry have come, expecting a changed lineup, perhaps a bit more energy from Coventry in the second half. Half time, Coventry 0, Sheffield United 1.
In the National League, Morecambe have equalised at Hartlepool. Hartlepool 1, Morecambe 1. Elsewhere, Borehamwood 1, Aldershot 0. Carlisle 1, Halifax 0. Goalless between Yeovil and Wealdstone. Back to the Champions League. Let's go through the rest of the 8 o'clocks with John Bennett and Juventus. I've got a fight on their hands at Sporting.
They are looking
at home to Sporting.
They're looking really nervy, Mark. Juventus won, Sporting won. So it's Luciano Spalletti's first Champions League game in charge of the club. They've only got 2 points going into this game. They went behind Max Araujo with his first of the season, the left-back firing in with his left foot. Sporting then hit the bar, but Dusan Vlahovic did equalise, sliding in. So that's a big goal for Juventus. Atletico Madrid were under a bit of pressure as well. Just 1 win so far, but they are 1-0 up against Union Saint-Gilloise. Julian Alvarez with the goal, flicked the ball up, then volleyed it in. Antoine Griezmann had a goal disallowed just before half-time. Olympiacos 1, PSV 0. Goal of the night from Gelson Martins. Really thunderous shot into the back of the net. And Monaco with a late goal just before half-time. They're 1-0 up against Bodo Glimt. It's Balogun with the goal. They're yet to win in this season's Champions League, Monaco.
Paris Saint-Germain, the holders, do trail at the break. They're 2-0 down at home to Bayern. Luis Diaz got both of the goals and has been sent off on the stroke of half-time. So Paris Saint-Germain 2 down, but Bayern are a man down. We'll hear from Mikel Arteta after Arsenal's 3-0 win at Slavia Prague. Earlier, after the BBC News at 4 minutes to 9.
The voice of the UK.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
And with the BBC News on 5 Live, I'm Dan Maudsley. The Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, has tried to prepare voters for her budget later this month by giving her strongest hint yet that taxes will rise. In an unusual pre-budget speech from Downing Street, Ms Reeves refused to rule out a U-turn on Labour's manifesto pledge not to raise income tax, VAT or national insurance, and said everyone must do their bit to contribute. The leader of the Green Party, Zach Polanski, said Rachel Reeves' speech was panicked.
It's only right that some of the wealthiest people in this country pay a little bit more from their wealth. But what we see far too often with this Labour government is so-called tricky decisions or tough decisions. Why are those tough decisions always for people in poverty, for disabled people, for migrants? And once again, it felt like in her speech today, she's laying out the carpet to make some more so-called tough decisions.
The brother of the teenager Axel Raducabana, who killed 3 young girls in Southport, has told the public inquiry into the attack that he feared he would kill a member of their family. Giving evidence remotely, Dion Raducabana said their parents had lost control of his sibling 5 years before the atrocity. Voting is underway in the United States in a series of closely watched elections. In New York City, the left-wing Democratic candidate Zohran Mamdani is standing for mayor. President Trump has branded the frontrunner a communist and endorsed one of his own long-time critics, Andrew Cuomo, who's standing as an independent. Mr. Trump has threatened to withhold federal funding from New York if the Democrat wins. This was Mr. Mamdani's reaction.
I will treat his threats as they deserve to be treated, which are the words of a president and not necessarily the law of the land. And too often we treat anything that he says by virtue of who's saying it as if it is already that law.
And a committee of MPs has written to the BBC's chairman demanding information about the way a speech by Donald Trump was edited in an episode of Panorama. Concerns have been raised after a report claimed viewers were misled by the programme, which edited Mr. Trump's speech to make him appear to explicitly encourage the riot on Capitol Hill in January 2021.
On BBC iPlayer,
these dastardly traitors.
19 celebrities entered the Traitors' Castle.
I am a favourite.
But now, only 5 remain.
It's so close to the wire now.
I do feel changed by it.
I'm scared. Everyone's so vigilant.
It all comes down to this.
I can try and pull the rug from under their feet. Sorry, traitors. I'm coming for you.
The Celebrity Traitors Final. Thursday night at 9 on BBC One and iPlayer.
This is 5 Live Sports, the Champions League with Mark Chapman.
Listen on BBC Sounds.
Goalless at Anfield at the break. We'll be back with Ian Dennis shortly. Earlier, Arsenal continued their perfect start in the Champions League. They won 3-0 away to Slavia Prague. Here's Mikel Arteta.
Well, I'm very happy, obviously, with the win, 4 in a row without conceding a goal. A really tough place to come. I told the boys, the game that we had to expect, a team that is super intense, very direct, man-to-man. So very short sequences of play, a lot of fouls, a lot of restarts, very difficult to get any fluency in the match. But if we were patient and emotionally controlled, we're going to have our chances and the way they set up. And we did that. I think the margin was, at the end, it looked comfortable, but I don't think it was a comfortable match at all. And not only the win, but as well the fact that we had some players that they haven't played much.
Welcome back to the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium on BBC Radio 5 Sports Extra, where the second half is not too far away from getting underway at a mild Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Tottenham 1, Copenhagen 0. It does look like we'll be seeing at least one Copenhagen change, and it'll be interesting to see what response they can muster after a first half that Tottenham lead, but it could have been a lot more. We are underway on 5 Sports Extra. Tottenham kicking from right to left. One of those you could probably file under good foul because Kolo Muani had a free run at the back 4, but it means that the centre-back will have to play the remaining 75 minutes of this game on a yellow card. And into the feet of Bentancur. And now all of a sudden there's a great run from Johnson, who's around the goalkeeper, but his angle is tight. Slides it in! It's a brilliant finish from Brennan Johnson to give Tottenham Hotspur the lead against Copenhagen. The Danes loose in midfield. The pass was perfect. Johnson took it around the goalkeeper, but the angle was tight. He still had so much to do, but he slides it into the bottom corner to make it Tottenham 1, Copenhagen 0.
And it's good work from Brennan Johnson, makes absolutely no mistake.
Touch from Alderweireld, who gets it back. Lovely football. Simons burst through. Kolo Muani to finish. Wide. Oh, it would have been a glorious goal. Lovely football from Spurs. One touch intricacy, and Kolo Muani to roll into the corner, but he rolled it a yard wide. Thinking there could be more on the table here. Great ball in. Kolo Muani heads over. It's another excellent chance for Spurs. It's another excellent chance for Kolo Muani. Simons finds him again with a deliciously floated ball in, and Kolo Muani heads over from no more than 8 yards out. Yeah, really good couple of chances for Kolo Muani in that first half. He couldn't take them, and it's why it's Tottenham 1, Copenhagen 0. Back underway in the second half, with Tottenham kicking from left to right and on the attack very early on. Low ball in. Here's another opportunity. Brennan Johnson flying into that one. Really good defending to prevent Johnson tapping in, and now he's injured inside the Copenhagen penalty area. Referee has spotted it and will halt the game. That would have been the perfect start to the second half, with a good low ball in from Audebert, and Johnson flying into the chance at the front post as we watch a replay, and he's maybe just caught. It's actually really well defended. Is that Marcos Lopez flying in? Yeah, it was. He's on his feet, Brennan Johnson, and the chance eventually cleared. Former Premier League defender Curtis Davis with us on 5 Sports Extra. That's a challenge that you'd have enjoyed.
Yeah, really good. Just the timing of it. He didn't dive into the challenge, timed it really well, got his foot to the ball, and unfortunately for Brennan Johnson, just got his foot caught between, but fortunately he's able to carry on without any treatment. But really good work there from Udogie and then Audebert. But Audebert, because he takes it with his right foot rather than his left foot, just gave that extra little bit of time for the defender to get back in, and that stops Brennan Johnson getting his second goal of the game.
So Tottenham 1, Copenhagen 0. Brennan Johnson's goal in the first half. There was a half-time change for Copenhagen. Jordan Larsson playing no further part, taken off at half-time. And Victor Dadison is on, and there's quite a story around this 17-year-old Icelandic striker who made history by becoming the Champions League's youngest ever debutant scorer, with a goal against Borussia Dortmund in their last Champions League game. They lost the game 4-2 to Copenhagen, but a goal for Dadison right at the end, and that's a nice piece of history for him. Champions League's youngest ever scorer as a debutant, and he's on the pitch now. There's a lot of him. He's only 17, but he's a good 6'4", 6'5". He's already got a couple of goals in the 5 games that he's played for Copenhagen this season, and it's just a different threat for Spurs to worry about. And I'll run you through the two sides when there is the first meaningful chance to do so in this second half. No changes for Spurs at the break. Bentancur, lovely control, centre of midfield. Now he has an opportunity to spread it to Porro, who is thought about shooting from 35-40 yards. Crowd were hoping for it. He denied the opportunity and now finds Johnson. Clever ball. Simons will just about keep this in play. Right hand side of the penalty area. Needs support. A little bit isolated. Porro on the angle of the box. He on to his right foot. Simons also declines the opportunity to cross. And Spurs now, in fact, go all the way back to Romero, who's at the base of the centre circle. Square to Van der Ven. Spurs having a little look down the far side, the left. Spurs going from left to right. Van der Ven is running out of play. That's a loose pass back that Dadison latches onto, and then welcome to the game. Christian Romero crunches into a challenge, a fair challenge, and it's out of play for a Copenhagen throw.
No mercy.
No.
You know, teach these kids young, teach them early, because I like the fact when you were speaking about Dadison and talking about him being the youngest Champions League goal scorer, he actually at that point was going right up against Van der Ven, almost stepping on his toes, saying, I'm not going to be intimidated by you, which I like that from a young lad straight away. But let's see how he copes with the game in general. But that's the first challenge he's going to get tonight from Romero, and I'm sure it won't be the last.
Yeah, that's very much a marking your territory challenge from Romero, who we know is not shy to put the boot in, and I'm sure as a 17-year-old he knows full well that maybe if I can rattle you early, then you might not be that effective. So no changes for Spurs at the break. They are as they were, with Vicario in goal, and then Porro, Romero, Van der Ven and Udogie, Sarr, Bentancur, then Audebert, Simons and the goalscorer Johnson. Kolo Muani up front, and he had 2 excellent chances in that first half. Here goes Elyounoussi for Copenhagen, far side to right. Green shirts for Copenhagen with the gold numbers on the back. Elyounoussi was hoping for a free kick from the assistant referee. Instead he pointed his flag in the direction of Katarski, so Spurs have a throw in their left back position. The goalkeeper, Dominik Katarski, who could have done better, should have done better with the Johnson goal. He was far too quickly off his line. And in front of him, Suzuki, Pereira, Hatzidiakos and Lopez. Now, with Larsson off the field, you sense that it could be a 4-3-3 for Copenhagen, with Laraja, Clem and Achuri, with Makoko, Elyounoussi and Dadison further forward. And we'll just see how that plays out. It may well be that they stick with their 4-4-2 formation, and perhaps a Makoko or a Achuri will drop into a more wide position to keep the 4-4-2 playing. We'll see how that develops. We'll bring Curtis in on that in a moment. Spurs meanwhile have a goal kick, which Vicario will take away to our left. Luis Diaz is having a very eventful game in Paris because he's now been sent off. So he scored 2 and now he's been sent off, and it's half time at the Parc des Princes. Paris Saint-Germain 0, Bayern Munich 2. Lay, like us, have just got underway in this second half. One for Kolo Muani to chase, and he might get there, and Katarski for some reason hesitated. The ball in the air. Can Kolo Muani control and finish? He's done the first bit. He finds the tap in for Wilson Odobert, and Tottenham lead by 2-0. And for all of Kolo Muani's misses in the first half, he deserves immense credit there for closing down the goalkeeper, for controlling a ball that was miles in the air, for laying it to Odobert. He rolls it in for 2-0, and that is just the start to this second half that Spurs were after. Tottenham 2, Copenhagen 0.
And again, unfortunately, it's that man Dominic Katarski. This time he actually makes the right decision by going out, but just looking again, might he be offside? I'm not sure if VAR are going to check this, but he makes the right decision by coming, but then he stops, and then once he stops, he tries to volley it clear. Kolo Muani goes gaping, but he realises he can't get the shot on target, rolls it back to his fellow countryman Odobert, who's coming steaming in, and makes no mistake with a calm right foot finish into the bottom right hand corner, and that's 2-0 Spurs. Should have been 2-0 earlier, but I just want to see if this VAR check, if there is going to be anything, because it was a really tight call on Kolo Muani on the halfway line, but a really cool finish from Odobert to make sure that Spurs, and the game has kicked off. It is 2-0.
It was tight, but it didn't take long for VAR to clear it. Semi-automated offsides have been in operation in the Champions League for a while now, and very nearly a decent response from Copenhagen with Elyounoussi in a little bit of space. Spurs clear, and it's out of play for a throw. But that is just the start, and that'll do Kolo Muani the world of good. And what Katarski was doing, I'm not so sure, because he was favourite for that and just seemed to hesitate and delay, and it allowed Kolo Muani to close him down and ultimately get the touch that led to the goal.
But that's it. It was the PTSD, I guess, from the first one, where he's maybe thought, I shouldn't have come for that one, whereas that one he actually made the right decision first off, because he was on the front foot. He was very much in favour, but the moment he stopped and Kolo Muani kept going, it was impossible for him to then get his space back. And for Kolo Muani, again, chased it down, his touch to bring it down. He easily could have gone for goal as well and still tried to manipulate his angles to get the ball into the net. But again, selfless play, rolled it across to Odobert, and a great finish by the other Frenchman in the team.
Yeah, for his first goal of the season, Wilson Odobert tends to save his Spurs goals for European competition. He got a couple against Alkmaar in last season's Europa League. His fourth for Spurs overall, the other in the Premier League against West Ham. And it'll be, you'd think, a good settler for Tottenham, who are running into trouble. Romero's given it away in a dangerous position. Moukoko inside the penalty area, that's a good effort. Bending shot to the bottom left corner, but Vicario always had it covered. And now with Copenhagen presumably pushing forward, it will allow Spurs to capitalise on the gaps they're leaving. Here is the recent goal scorer Odobert. Lovely feat initially to get away from one, but Suzuki was there to cover his right winger, and that'll be a free kick on Elyounoussi in the centre of midfield, and it's a free kick to Copenhagen, base of the centre circle. They trail 2-0, and with the half-time change of Daddison on for Larson, their team, Katarski in goal, Suzuki, Pereira, Hadziakos and Lopez, and with it does look more a 4-3-3, doesn't it?
Yeah, it looks like they've changed the shape. I think they're still, when they're out of possession, they're dropping one back to try and help the midfield. But there's a Brendan Johnson yellow card for a really quite reckless foul in the middle of the pitch. But yeah, it's definitely, we've got Daddison playing up top, and he's the big man that's trying to pin the two centre halves, and then it's kind of Moukoko and Elyounoussi that are just around him trying to, I guess, just support him. But I think when they're dropping out of possession, they're dropping down, and it's Elyounoussi that's sacrificing to join the midfielders and bank up as that 4.
Yellow card for Brennan Johnson for a strange tackle, really, because Marcos Lopez was running away from it. I think they may be checking this for a red card, It's not high, but the studs are up, and he catches Lopez on the ankle, and the studs are showing. Now, the threshold is a bit different in Europe compared to the Premier League, so this is being checked for a potential red card.
It was a really needless tackle where he didn't need to dive into it, but when you see the replay, his foot's actually there before the player is there, so it's not like he's raked down his heel, but I think once they check this, in the UEFA, in the Champions League type format, I can see this being a red card.
And the referee Eric Lambrechts is going across to the screen to look at the challenge, and we all know what this means. Bram van Driesche, the Belgian, is the VAR, and he has recommended Eric Lambrechts come to the monitor to look at this challenge, and we're seeing a still, which always looks like a red card when you put a still on, but now the replay, and it's such a needless challenge because Lopez is inside his own half, no real danger. He catches Lopez on the back of his Achilles with the stud showing, and I think Brennan Johnson knows what's coming.
Yep, and the referee is running back onto the pitch now.
Here he comes, Brennan Johnson, hands on his hips, waits his punishment. The imaginary TV screen is drawn by the referee. The yellow card is cancelled, and out comes the red card. And Brennan Johnson, who scored the goal to give Spurs the lead, is now off the field for that red card challenge that was given as a yellow. And the referee, told to look at it, has seen it back, has reversed his decision, and now 2-0 Spurs lead, but down to 10.
Really, really unlucky there. It's as I said, it's a needless challenge. Doesn't need to make it even to get himself a yellow. But you can see once they show the frozen still, you see the foot, the studs on the back of his Achilles. Of course you will. But his foot is actually there before the player gets there. So that's the part you don't see. But unfortunately, the threshold in the Champions League is slightly different. And we knew as soon as it comes up on the screen and he's going to go over, Brennan Johnson was going to get a red card. He knew it. He walked straight off the pitch, and what summed it up is the Copenhagen players almost patted him on the back and almost said, sorry mate, because they knew it was a bit harsh. But listen, they'll be happy now that it gives them a little bit of a glimpse of hope of trying to get back into this game, because Tottenham are going to have to change their shape. You see Vicario doing the gamesmanship, as it were, where the keeper can't go off the pitch and trying to get some information onto the pitch.
We've seen this a lot, haven't we, in recent weeks and months. He's clutching his left groin by the looks of it, and there's a couple of physio members there, and I'm not sure Curtis is having any of this.
No, he was fine until the red card came out.
Yeah.
My big thing is I'm quite surprised that there's no tactics, because usually you'd have the players huddled around the manager at this point. So I don't know what information he is getting on, or whether he's preparing. I think Paulinho's getting prepared to maybe come on, so he's trying to buy as much time as possible. Yeah, Paulinho's about to come on, so I think there's going to be a little bit of a shape change. Maybe, I don't know, go to a 4-4-1 maybe, and maybe have to sacrifice somebody from the team.
Well, it's definitely changed the dynamic of this game, and the Copenhagen fans have woken up. They are bouncing up and down in that corner, the Poznan, and they might sense that there could be a way back into this game. They trail 2-0, but Tottenham now down to 10 men. Brennan Johnson's red card. And incidentally, on the big screens around the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, 4 giant screens in the corner, did flash up the reasoning behind the red card from the VAR. It was all fairly normal stuff. The last line, as the ball is played into the penalty area, Vicario collects. The last line was probably the key line, endangering the safety of an opponent. And as you say, Curtis, I'm sure many will look at that challenge and think, oh, really? But the threshold is very different in Europe, and as soon as the studs made contact with the back of Lopez's Achilles, then we did know what was coming.
It's having to play the game in a different manner. When you've got VAR full stop, and then you've got VAR from the Premier League versus the Champions League, it's totally different. And by no means did Brennan Johnson mean to hurt him, but ultimately it was a needless challenge. And once you make those needless challenges, particularly in the Champions League, with VAR, it's always going to run the risk.
Kolo Muani is fouled by Clem, and the Tottenham fans are asking, I was about to say politely, but not very politely, as to what, give red card please, ref. Here comes that change that Curtis spotted, and João Paulinho is indeed coming on, and it's Xavi Simons who is coming off, and
he's devastated.
He is devastated, because I think he was he came on after 7 minutes against Chelsea on Saturday, and then was taken off, and he might feel that, well, I think he knows that change is clearly, and I'm sure Thomas Frank is saying, look, this is purely because we have to rethink things.
Yeah, he was affecting the game, and he had a good game, to be honest, Xavi Simons, but bringing on Paulinho, banking up the midfield with obviously Bentancur and Pape Sarr just gives you that solid base. Not to say that Xavi Simons won't put in the shift, but defensively isn't really his strength. So to bring on an experienced Paulinho who can not only control the ball but offer protection in front of that back four just makes sense at this stage of the game, especially when you're leading 2-0.
An hour gone. It's been a lively opening 15 minutes to the second half on 5 Sports Extra from the BBC. And Tottenham lead this game 2-0, but they are now playing with one man fewer. This result, if they can hang on, would take them into the top 6 of the Champions League. Here's Kolo Muani, and he's got numbers to his left, but Kolo Muani goes on into the box. Can he finish? He can't. Katarski makes a good save. He made the right decision that time to come out of goal, but I wonder, was the right pass to his left rather than trying to go for goal himself?
Yeah, well, it's Pape Sarr that makes the run into the box, and
opportunity for a Churi to run onto a ball through, but he was always second favourite for that, and Udogie defends that tidily enough.
Yeah, Pape Sarr made the run towards the left-hand side of the box, which actually just put the defender in 2 minds. That's when Kolo Muani decides to burst into the box, but what he didn't do is he didn't get his shot off. Katarsi came out well, smothered his feet and managed to make the save, and yeah, another opportunity for Kolo Muani to get off the mark, but hasn't done so.
Tottenham fans sense that they will be very important in this final half an hour or so, and they're right behind their side. This would be a big result, not just in the context of the Champions League, as Udogie is clipped by Suzuki, and that'll be another yellow card. Yonosuke Suzuki, the Japanese right back, not one of those carrying a yellow card, but he was just a little late on Udogie, and Spurs have a free kick in their left back position.
That's going to be the theme of the game now. Every single tackle, every single thing that Copenhagen do, these Spurs fans will be off their feet demanding somebody get booked or get a red card, because they know how harsh that Brennan Johnson one was, and they'll want a little bit of not revenge, but a little bit of a level playing field, and they'll keep doing that to the ref. But I don't think he'll be fazed, to be honest.
No, he's been around the block as Eric Lambrechts. He was last seen on these shores in January when he was in charge at Old Trafford for Manchester United's 2-1 win over Rangers in the Europa League group stages. Spurs have made good progress on this near side, the right, and will have a throw. And if they can win this game, good for the Champions League, clearly, but a decent response from Saturday, and as Curtis mentioned in the first half, it's a big few weeks for Spurs with big games to come. Porro into the front post, far too close to Katarski. Liverpool lead against Real Madrid. Alexis McAllister has scored at Anfield. That game over on 5 Live. Liverpool 1, Real Madrid 0. Also some big goals in the Championship, where Birmingham now lead Millwall by 4-0. Jay Stanfield has scored at St Andrews, and Coventry have turned it around against Sheffield United. Coventry 2, Sheffield United 1. Copenhagen building smoothly through midfield. Suzuki on that far side, the right, level with the edge of the penalty area. El Yunusi challenged well by Paulinho. That's exactly what he's in the team to do. And he stops that attack brilliantly. And look at this from Van der Ven. He's away from 5 and 6. He's into the box. Van der Ven to score a brilliant Champions League goal. One of the best goals you will see at this stadium. And what a stage to do it. The centre-back, from almost the edge of his own penalty area, he just kept going and going and going, and when he needed a finish, what a finish to make it Tottenham 3, Copenhagen 0.
And for all the half chances that Spurs have had in the game, for this to be one of the goals on the night was fantastic. Mickey van der Ven, we've seen him do it so many times where he bursts out of the back, but this was his George Weah moment, where he just drove past one, he drove past another, and then once he gets that head of steam and he just knocks it into the space, there's nobody catching him. Right at the last moment as he enters the box, he's got Kolo Muani to the right of him, has a decision to make, but as he picks it up here, he goes past 1, past 2, past 3, past 4, and he bursts into the box. And once he's there, as he enters the edge of the box, he's got an opportunity to pass to Kolo Muani, but he thinks, I've come all this way, I'm going to make sure I finish the job, and absolutely slots it into the bottom left-hand corner like an accomplished striker, showing Kolo Muani just how to do it. But what a goal, and what a response to going down to 10 men.
That is sensational from Mickey van der Ven to pick it up where he did. And he only seemed to get quicker and quicker. And the finish was one of a seasoned striker. It's a brilliant goal to give Spurs probably the cushion they need playing with 10 men. He's having some season, is Mickey van de Ven. That's already his 6th goal of the season. He got a couple of headers against Everton in the Premier League. I don't think he'll score a better goal than that.
I think the closest thing I've seen him do in that sense was when he set up Brendan Johnson at Old Trafford, when he ran past a couple, knocked it into the space, and then unselfishly that day passed to Brendan Johnson. Today he made his own mind up. He's like, no, I've come all this way, I'm in a great position, and just slotted into that bottom corner. Excellent finish, particularly when you consider how far he'd come and the pace that he was running at.
Defending though for Mickey van de Ven and his Spurs defenders to do, because Copenhagen have won a corner, floated into the penalty area. It's well headed away. Odegaard is bumped off the ball and will win it back well, and suddenly it's 3-on-1 and it's Christian Romero. This could be another for a centre back. Left hand side of the penalty area, low ball in Paulinia. It's 4-0, and in the blink of an eye Tottenham have taken this game away from Copenhagen. A blistering counter-attack and 2 goals from 2 unlikely sources has won this game for Thomas Frank Spurs. Paulinia at the back post, Tottenham 4, Copenhagen 0.
And he started in the bottom right hand corner with some really great work from Odegaard. As the ball's cleared from the corner, he doesn't give up on it. He chases the ball down. He's initially shoved by Lopez, but Lopez and it's Suzuki, I think, get mistaken. Odegaard just drives forward. He sees Romero ahead of him, decides to play it. Romero chooses not to hit it with his left foot, but I think this might be ruled out.
Oh, it's close.
Seeing Paulinia again. Romero chose to go across to Paulinia. He puts it in the back of the net via a Katarski hand, but I think this one looks more offside than earlier when the Kolo Muani one, but we will wait to see whether it's going to be checked.
I think the referee has just signalled that it's a goal, and you're right, it's
gone back to Katarski, and it will be ruled out. Oh, hang on.
Well, the referee initially pointed back to the goalkeeper, but no, he's pointed to the centre circle, so it is a goal. I think Copenhagen thought the referee had ruled it out.
Yeah, it seemed the ball literally went back to Katarski, and I thought it was being ruled out, but no, 4-0 Spurs. And when we spoke at the start of the game about wanting to get a few goals, we were hoping for Xavi Simons, for Kolo Muani to get themselves off the mark, and Spurs look like they can score every time on the transition now.
Copenhagen have lost their heads, and all of a sudden it's 3-on-2 again. Papsar leading the latest attack. Kolo Muani can't finish. Good save, Katarski. It's the one thing missing from tonight's performance, you feel, but Copenhagen, if they don't sort themselves out, they could be on the end of a huge score, and they have one more man.
Yeah, it's ridiculous what they're doing at the moment. They've gone gung-ho, but they just don't seem to have any shape about them. Every time Spurs have won the ball back, they've just managed to break forward with no pressure. Papsar then made a nice pass to Kolo Muani. Kolo Muani almost, with a good bad touch, almost got himself in, but Katarski there makes up for his earlier errors and makes another big save. But it only looks like Spurs are going to get another goal, and Papsar in loads of space again on the edge of the box.
And here he comes, running from right to left. He's going backwards for now, but Udogie's into the game. Can't take your eyes off this. Odegaard running at Suzuki, left-hand edge of the penalty area. He's got Udogie in support. Spurs are enjoying themselves now, even though they have one man fewer. Van de Ven and Paulinia's goals have Spurs in a brilliant position. And listen to the fans. This is exactly the response that Thomas Frank would have wanted after Saturday. Champions of Europe, we know what we are. Sing the fans of the Europa League winners. And we have mentioned there are many empty seats here at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, particularly towards the top ends of the stands, but those that have been here are thoroughly enjoying what they're seeing, and they've seen one of the best goals that'll ever be scored here. Sarr, great give and go, he's into the box and he just couldn't sort his feet out. Copenhagen clear, but at the moment it has the feel of a game that Copenhagen are down to 10 and not Spurs.
Yeah, that's the thing. The momentum shift should have been for Copenhagen, but they've been victims of themselves, as we spoke about Spurs in the first half, trying to make sure they don't make the mistakes and allow an easy goal. Copenhagen have then got themselves a man extra and just capitulated twice on the break. They've capitulated, and if not for Katarski, actually could have been at 5 already. So really disappointing with their reaction to Spurs going down to 10 men. But Spurs have been fantastic, been clinical, what they weren't in the first half, and Thomas Frank will be absolutely delighted with his team. But Copenhagen about to make a triple substitution to see if they can get themselves back into this game.
Yeah, 3 green-shirted players are lining up, waiting to come on as Copenhagen swing a ball into the penalty area, dealt with. Odeberg with his back to goal has a little bit of more work to do and uses Van der Ven, who thumps it out of play. So Victor Claesson is one of those coming on, a very experienced Swedish midfielder, and Yusufa Makoko is coming off for him. We'll also be seeing Munash Garananga, the Zimbabwean centre-back, and Andreas Cornelius, the former Cardiff City striker, as well, coming on. And some big players are being replaced, Curtis, the likes of Elyounoussi and Makoko, and you wonder whether Jakob Nystrom has decided that maybe I'll be in self-preservation mode with some of these players, and Gabriel Pereira is one of the other players, another key cog in his Copenhagen side. So it looks like 3 key players are being withdrawn, and I think Jakob Nystrom is electing that maybe I have to start resting a few players. Spurs also making changes. Richarlison, Spence and Danso are all coming on. Kolo Muani is coming off. Now, he could have had a goal in the first half, but he's been roundly cheered off the pitch. And Curtis, he had a big part to play in Spurs' second goal with that excellent touch.
Yeah, he's had a good performance in my opinion. He set up a couple of good opportunities, one for Xavi Simons in the first half. Obviously himself, he had a couple of opportunities and then sets up the goal. The only thing was missing was that goal. He got the assist, yes, but strikers will always be scored on their goals, and coming to this club as a French international, coming from PSG, they'll want him to get off the mark sooner rather than later. But performance-wise, very, very good. His goals weren't needed tonight because everybody else has contributed to that side.
Jed Spence coming onto the field for Destiny Udogie, and Christian Romero, who has an assist to his name. I was half willing him to score because that would have been some story. 2 goals to win it for Spurs from Van der Ven and Romero, and not 2 headers from corners. The Van der Ven one is, well, I'm sure it's probably doing the rounds already on social media. It's a brilliant goal, one worth watching. And Romero, we're seeing a replay actually. Had his first touch been better, he probably was through on goal. And we're having a look at the semi-automated offside.
It's a toenail.
It's very close, look at that. But Paulinho was there to profit. 4-0 Spurs lead. And the 2 goals they got just moments after Brennan Johnson was dismissed for a reckless challenge, as it went down as, on Marcus Lopez. Copenhagen swing a ball into the penalty area. It's deflected off Sarr, and that's out of play for a Copenhagen corner. The Copenhagen fans are still enjoying their time in North London. They were here last year, not so much North London but West London, when they were beaten by Chelsea in the last 16 of the Europa Conference League, a competition Chelsea went on to win. In comes the corner. Several bodies go for it. The volley is optimistically hit by Clem. It's bouncing around inside the Spurs penalty area. Cornelius tries to get on the end of it. It's eventually recycled to Achuri near side the left, and his ball in will be hacked clear by Van der Ven, who can do no wrong currently, and it's out of play for a Copenhagen throw.
Yeah, I think Copenhagen, as you mentioned earlier with the substitutes, they brought off their bigger players, shall we say. I think it's pretty much trying to give others opportunity, but also just protecting players. I think Gabriel, obviously having been ill last week.
Nice ball into the Spurs penalty area. It's well controlled by Laraja, who will force another Copenhagen corner. His cross taking a deflection, but the flag up on that far side actually, so forget all of that. It'll be a Spurs free kick.
Yeah, Gabriel obviously was on the yellow card, had been ill in the week, so just protect him from potentially getting himself sent off as well, and then missing the next game, because what's coming up next is definitely a more winnable game when it comes to Kairat.
Yes.
So they'll be seeing that game as a game watch. Listen, are they going to get into that mid section of the table where they maybe can go to a playoff? I'm not sure, but they'll see it as an opportunity to go and get a win and get themselves off the mark this season.
Yes, Copenhagen next in action against the Kazakh champions Kairat Almaty. They'll be relieved, I'm sure, that that's a home game and they haven't got to travel halfway across the world for it. And then the 3 remaining games for Copenhagen: Villarreal away, Napoli at home and Barcelona away. So it's tricky to see where they're getting too many points. Another Copenhagen change, and Elias Achuri is coming off, and Robert Silva, the Brazilian midfielder, can play at the back as well. He's coming on 20 years of age, second season with the club, and he's on the field to play the final 15 minutes of this game on BBC Radio 5 Sports Extra. Tottenham 4, Copenhagen 0 in what has been a very enjoyable game, especially the second half. Suzuki swings a ball in for Copenhagen. Interesting, Cornelius on the end of it, headed back across goal. And Spurs will sort themselves out eventually with a controlled clearance. Richarlison then is bumped off the ball by Hatzidiakos, and that's a free kick to Tottenham just inside their own half.
Yeah, really clever play by Richarlison there. He just gets himself backed in. He knows that the contact's coming, but he's brave enough to take the contact, and then wins his team a good foul and just allows them to slow the game down just at a point where Copenhagen were getting into the box a bit more often.
Brennan Johnson is the first ever British player to score and be sent off in the same Champions League game. There you are, one from Opta. That's not necessarily a record you'll be proud of, but it's a record.
Yeah, that surprises me, because obviously the amount of teams that played in Champions League, and sometimes you do get these sloppy challenges. The likes of, I think, of Paul Scholes and people like that probably have scored goals and made silly tackles. But it's not a welcome record, but at the same time, it says he's a Champions League goal scorer, so he'll be happy with that tag alongside his name.
Yes, he will, and it was a very well taken goal as well. Copenhagen fans with their white and blue flags raised above their head. It's always a great spectacle when they do that, and it's always one of the great things of doing Champions League games. The travelling support always, doesn't matter where they're from, always great value, and they're attempting to enjoy their time. They may be enduring it at the moment because they've watched their team comfortably beaten. They would have been a glimmer at 2-0 and 10 men to play against, but really their spirit crushed by that Van de Ven goal. It reminded me of under 10s football when there's a young footballer who looks about twice the size of everyone else and he's just running through everyone.
Yeah, he seemed a giant because he just kept going, and it just seemed that nobody could get anywhere near him physically or pace-wise, and he just ended up with a great finish at the end just to finish it all off.
Spurs will want to keep this clean sheet intact, and there's a chance on the left-hand side of the box for Cornelius. Maybe was better off going for goal, but trying to find a teammate on the edge of the penalty area. And here is Copenhagen moving forward again with Robert Silva. The ball infield from Klaassen. The Swedish midfielder gets it back right on the edge of the penalty area, but there are several white shirts, a wall of white, preventing any green leaking through. Robert Silva has another chance on the left-hand angle. That's a clever-looking ball. Suzuki's peeled away at the back post. That looks like handball, and it was handball. We might be about a million yards away from that, but that was clearly off the arm and not the shoulder.
No VAR needed for that at all. I thought he was playing volleyball. It was that simple a handball. I think he has meant to take on his chest, but it clearly just hits him on the bicep area, and Spurs are gonna use this to give Dane Scarlett a bit of time as well on the pitch and see if he can get himself a Champions League goal. Yeah,
and I'm sure Thomas Frank would have wanted the opportunity to use the likes of Dane Scarlett. It is a very youthful bench because behind Dane Scarlett and the two goalkeepers on the bench as well, Anthony Kinski and Brandon Austin, we've seen all the senior pros on the field off the bench, Danzo, Paulinia, Richarlison, Spence. Now Dane Scarlett is going to have a run out, the 21-year-old who has had loan spells at the likes of Ipswich and Portsmouth. This will be his first appearance this season. He is very highly thought of, is Dane Scarlett, and he'll have an opportunity with 10 minutes to play to see what he can do in this game. Also on the bench, the real youngsters, Rio Kara-Martin, Yusuf Akamrich and James Rousewell have yet to make an appearance for Spurs, and you fancy they're just making up the numbers. Wilson Odobert is coming off. His goal just after half-time really settled Spurs down. It was a simple finish in the end. Kolo Muani made it with a great touch, good persistence, lovely touch, good awareness as well. Odobert rolling into the corner. He's put himself about, and Dane Scarlett coming on for the final 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's a nice bit of game time, but he's going to be needed his defensive contribution, I think, more so in this last bit of the game. I think because he's a young lad, he'll come on and he'll do what the gaffer tells him, to be honest. So he's gone on that left-hand side to start with Richarlison up top, but yeah, he seems to be settling into a defensive mode, helping out with Suzuki down that right-hand side.
Stoke have beaten Oxford 3-0 in the Championship. In League One, Rotherham have come from 2 goals down to draw 2-2 with Burton Albion. Another ball played deep into the Spurs penalty area. Not convincingly cleared yet, but should be now. It's so tight. There are bodies everywhere, just outside the box, centrally positioned. Robert has it on the angle, onto his right foot. Decent effort, Vicario in the way. Front post, went to try and sneak it into that near corner, but Vicario always favourite to save, and save he did.
Yeah, it's a clean enough strike, but Vicario saw it all the way, just in a nice position, nice weight for him, easily collected, no mistakes made there.
Conor Gallagher has scored for Atletico Madrid, who now lead Union Saint-Gilloise 2-0, and Derby have scored late to potentially win the game against Hull. 2-1 they now lead. Here go Copenhagen, and a right foot effort. Dadison to Klassen. He wanted the corner, and he's not going to get the corner. He has his arms outstretched as Klassen, wearing the green base layer to match his green shirt. We're just watching the replay, and I think it was more out of hope than expectation. I think he struck that cleanly over the bar.
Yeah, I think there he was a little bit cuter with the pace that, I know he's quick anyway, but Van der Ven was coming across. He might have been able to manipulate a bit of VAR there himself and just take the touch and take the contact, but he saw a sight of goal. Unfortunately for him, it was wild in the end, and he tried to fake out the referee by saying it was a corner. It was never a corner, and Spurs able to clear their lines with this goal kick.
Birmingham have beaten Millwall 4-0 in the Championship. Derby had beaten Hull 2-1. Also in the Championship, Derby are on a decent run after a difficult start. Ball on the edge of the penalty area. Here's an opportunity for Scarlett. Low ball in. Richarlison wanted too much time, but he might get on the end of the rebound. Several Copenhagen players rather running into one another there. Ball is well run back by Bentancur, who gets it back from Porro. Thought about the early cross and decides that there are better options, and Porro is that better option. You can see Spurs wanting to go forward, but also there's probably an element of them thinking, let's just keep the ball here, nothing silly, we lead 4-0, we're not going to lose this game, but we'd also like to keep a clean sheet, and if they were to keep a clean sheet, that'd be a 5th in their last 7 European fixtures. Ball to the back post, Richarlison heads against the bar, and the referee looks at his watch and says play on. It did not cross the line. Excellent ball in, and Richarlison rose well, and very unlucky to see his header crash off the underside of the bar, but not over the line.
Yeah, it's really great work from Pedro Porro down his right hand side, and being 4-0 up, yes, they've got 10 men, they'd like to keep the clean sheet, but it's still a comfortable enough scoreline where they can go for another goal. Pedro Porro drives down the right hand side, hangs up a lovely ball towards the back post, and Richarlison gets highest, heads it really well, but just the wrong side of the bar, and it bounces out. And yeah, he really would have wanted that to put the idea back in the manager's head to start him back on the weekend, but yeah, couldn't quite get that goal in easy. He's back here on the edge of the box running in.
Yeah, with a flash of blonde hair glinting under the floodlights, wearing the yellow boots, Richarlison. He's still looking angrily towards someone. I think he's just a little bit gutted that his header didn't find the back of the net. Couldn't really have done much more with it. It was an excellent header, but off the crossbar and down. And in the end, a couple of yards the wrong side of the line from a Spurs perspective. There was no need to have a too close a look at that to see whether it had crossed the line or not. Richarlison has it by the corner flag near side the right. Spurs are going towards the south stand, and they would have very much enjoyed Mickey van der Ven's wonder goal. Now that will be spoken about for many years to come. Spence far side the left infield. Paulinho turns away nicely from 2 players. Great awareness of where the ball was going and where the opposition were. Porro on this right hand side. That's another good ball in. Richarlison again, the flicked header, and he rather got in Dane Scarlett's way, who was just behind him. Slightly different header from Richarlison. He punches the ground in frustration. The first header was all about power, that was all about placement, and he just couldn't quite guide it into the corner.
But he actually does really well to get onto it again, and it's an unbelievable ball from Porro again, but just as the ball comes in, Garananga's just in front of him, so he doesn't really see it properly. He sees it late, but yeah, just couldn't quite get that slight flick. He got too little on it this time, and unfortunately for him, just goes the wrong side of the post.
5 minutes to play at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Tottenham 4, Copenhagen 0. Still Liverpool over on BBC Radio 5 Live, leading Real Madrid by a goal to 0. Here's Scarlett on the right hand edge of the penalty area, wearing the black boots, which you don't often see these days. back down the line to the tireless Sarr, and now Bentancur sweeps it to Van de Ven, who nods it on to the dreadlocked Spence, who can't get away from Suzuki, but Victor Claesson on that far side will clear via Hatzidiakos, and Van de Ven wins another header on halfway. Lars Laraja is fouled by Richarlison. Earlier, Slavia Prague 0, Arsenal 3, 2 Mikel Merino goals and a Bukayo Saka penalty. Atletico 2, Union Saint-Gilloise 1. All of these latest scores: Bodo Glimt 0, Monaco 1, 2 of Spurs' former opponents in the Champions League. Juventus 1, Sporting 1, Olympiacos 1, PSV 0, and Paris Saint-Germain 1, Bayern Munich 2. João Neves has a goal for the holders. Ball deep to the back post, which will not be headed in by Cornelius, and out of play it drops for a Spurs goal kick. So Spurs heading up to 7th as things stand in the table. It will put them on 8 points from their 4 games, and if last year is anything to go by, 16 enough for a top 8 finish. So there's still work to do from their final 4 games, but if they can pick up another 8 points from their remaining 4 games, but they're tough, PSG away, and that quite literally does not get much tougher. The holders away, then Slavia Prague at home, which you imagine won't hold too many issues. Dortmund at home will be tough, but one they'd fancy, and then an away trip to Frankfurt. And if they have eyes on reaching the playoff round, then 13 needed. So if they can pick up 5 from their final 4, then they should make the playoffs. And based on tonight's performance, yes, they were expected to beat Copenhagen, but Thomas Frank will take plenty from this, you imagine, Curtis, not least the 4 goals.
Yeah, I think the first half had you scratching your head a little bit in terms of maybe the communication, the cohesion between players at times, missed chances. Robert Silva onto his right foot, but his shot deflected. Suzuki on the angle, loops it into the box. There are several players waiting to tap it in, and Dadison was one of them, the 6'4" teenager. Couldn't get on the end of it and hacked behind by Porro. Yeah, well done from Porro there, just took no risk as it fell to Dadison. Couldn't quite get that header, kind of bumped into each other. Porro clears his lines and forces the corner, but as I was saying, this Spurs side, I think they've been good in terms of clinical in the second half, but that's what they lacked in the first half. But just happy to get the 4 goals. Corner that goes a long way and clear to Clem on the edge of the penalty area. Now on the right hand angle is Claesson against the midriff of Porro, and as always there's a glance towards the referee inquiring as to whether or not that might be handball, but Porro couldn't really have had his arm any closer to his body, so no one's particularly interested in that. Again, always hopeful rather than actually thinking it's going to happen, because again with VAR, well, yeah, you can expect anything, to be honest, and especially European VAR. It does always feel that the handball rule, more than any other, is the one that's has very different interpretations wherever you are. Long throw, easily headed away by Richarlison, a little more up than out than you would have liked, but gets on the end of a Bentancur header and then loses his way. Moranga steps out of midfield and then plays an errant pass backwards. That's a crunching challenge on Bentancur. Referee waves a good advantage that Spence is looking to take advantage of. Richarlison a little bit slow in getting up with him. There are men at the back post, 2 of them, Porro and Sarr, but the ball doesn't reach them, and Bentancur has it back. And actually, credit to Bentancur, he was up very quickly. That was a crunching challenge on him. He made very little of that when he probably had every right to make something of it. And if he did, it might have gone to VAR. Yeah. So we don't really know what they would have done. But yeah, honest player. Just happy enough with the 4-0 win. Doesn't need to keep getting people sent off. But yeah, Jed Spence did well down the left initially there, but then put hopeful. No need to put a cross in. See the game out. And yeah, just allowed Copenhagen to have possession, but now Spurs do have it back. And we're into the final minute at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. 4-0 Spurs lead, the perfect tonic after a difficult afternoon against Chelsea. They've played well against limited opponents. They've scored 4 goals, and they are, however many minutes the 4th official will add on, away from a clean sheet as well. In the Championship, Leicester 1, Middlesbrough 1. So Middlesbrough down to 10 men, but scored right at the death. Luke Ayling scoring in the 96th minute for Rob Edwards' side. Leicester 1, Middlesbrough 1, Ipswich 1, Watford 1, also a full time. And Charlton Athletic 1, West Brom 0 in the Championship. Nathan Jones' side going well. 3 minutes have been added on, and I rather feel that's a sympathetic 3 minutes from the referee. And it's always fairly amusing
when the sympathetic added on time gets added on, because I fancy, well, in fact I know that the VAR check probably took 3 minutes, and we've had more action apart from that. Here's an opportunity for Scarlett, who has his legs taken from him. Penalty, no doubt about it. Dane Scarlett wins his side a penalty. He made excellent progress into the box, and just as he was about to shoot, he had his legs taken away from him. He gets big congratulations from Kevin Danso, who says, well done, young man. And Spurs have a penalty and a chance to make it 5-0.
Yeah, he does some great work there. It's his initial first touch. He just shrugs Suzuki off the ball, does a nice flick through his legs, drives into the box, and as he does, it's Suzuki that's coming back, clips him on the heels just as he's about to pull the trigger. And then Dane Scarlett was desperate for the ball, but it's Richarlison that takes it, and he will be the one to try and make it 5-0 for Spurs.
Someone was yellow carded there, and I presume it wasn't Yonosuke Suzuki, because he is on a yellow card, so it must have been for dissent afterwards, not from Suzuki. So I wondered whether Dane Scarlett might have fancied this one, but Richarlison says, sorry, this is mine.
You saw him asking for it. He looked disappointed, but he did understand. Danso was just hugging him and saying, well done, you've earned it. He will, nowadays, he'll get the assist for it if Richarlison scores, but hopefully Richarlison, with a couple of chances he'd had, he'll put this in the back of the net.
Not scored since the 20th of September, Richarlison. He steps up now, hesitant run up, and hits the bar again. The underside of the bar, still loose in midfield in the penalty area, now cleared, and Richarlison sees his penalty cannon off the crossbar. He's hit that part of the bar twice now, one from a header and then from the penalty. Hit it well, just a fraction too high.
Yeah, really frustrating. You know, when you're a goal scorer, you're a striker, and you have this chance when it's a no pressure penalty. He's 4-0 up, but he maybe puts the pressure on himself because of the two chances he's missed. He's desperate to get a goal, desperate to take Kolo Muani's starting shirt, and that just doesn't help him. You know, the frustration, just hoping this last couple of minutes the frustration doesn't come out of him and he does anything silly. But listen, he's passionate, he wants to score that goal. He took the ball with confidence, hoping he could scored a pen, but unfortunately for him it's that bar again that's against him.
Yeah, his goal drought continues. He wins the ball back in midfield, but the referee had already blown his whistle for a foul inside the Tottenham half. Copenhagen want to get on with this quickly, keen for a consolation, but the referee wasn't ready. So Robert Silva will pick himself up and will deliver with his left foot. And Spurs now will be desperate to keep this clean sheet, and if they can, it'll cap off a very good evening for Thomas Frank's side. The first ever meeting between Tottenham and Copenhagen will be a handsome Tottenham Hotspur win. Still Liverpool 1-up at home to Real Madrid at Anfield. Closing stages on 5 Live. Blackburn have beaten Bristol City in the Championship at Ashton Gate. Robert Silva's delivery is headed over the top, and comfortably over the top as well. There was no threat to Vicario's goal. I think it might have been Cornelius who got that header on, but comfortably over the bar. Spurs 4, Copenhagen 0, and that is that. It's a very good win for Tottenham. They continue unbeaten in the Champions League. They now have a couple of wins to their name. In truth, they were never troubled from a limited Copenhagen, but they played well, and it'll be a night remembered for Mickey van der Ven's wonder goal, running from the edge of his own penalty area, beating 5 Copenhagen players and finishing coolly into the back of the net. That was the 3rd goal for Spurs. It followed Brennan Johnson's opener, and Wilson Odobert looked to have made sure after half-time. Things could have got tricky when Brennan Johnson was sent off for a high challenge once VAR had intervened, but then came Van der Ven's wonder goal. Paulinia off the bench to make sure. Copenhagen really didn't test Vicario at all, and it's a very good win for Tottenham that takes them into the top 8 of the Champions League. They've beaten Copenhagen 4-0, and really, Curtis Davis, very little for Thomas Frank to grumble about there.
Yeah, very little for him to grumble about, and I can tell you one thing for sure: Van der Ven will not be walking down that tunnel sulking today. No. So he kind of held his hands up at the end to the fans almost to apologise, because now he is going to stand out and clap them. But yeah, very accomplished performance in the end. First half not that they look shaky, but just in terms of, you always wonder that when you miss those kind of chances, can you allow a team back into it? But Odegaard with the second goal, and from there, when Brennan Johnson gets that red card, you expect the game to maybe turn a little bit to Copenhagen's favour, and you maybe see Spurs batten down the hatches. It went the other way. They obviously scored 4. They've missed a penalty. It actually could have been about 6 in that second half, and you wouldn't have blinked an eye at the scoreline. So fair play to Spurs. They've gone and scored the goals after a disappointing game in front of the goal on the weekend. But it's now, this is what Spurs fans want to see. They want to see that front foot. They want to see that aggression on the front foot, and they want to see more goals at this stadium.
A nice moment between Thomas Frank and Mickey van der Ven as Thomas Frank came onto the pitch to celebrate with his players. A little wry smile, a little nod of the head. Mickey van der Ven smiling back. And now he's joining the players to applaud the Spurs fans. The Copenhagen players have gone to their corner. Most of their fans have remained. They came to North London knowing full well it was a huge ask to get anything from this game. But they are here to the end and giving their side a decent hand as well. And Spurs players slowly making their way around the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Thomas Frank very much enjoying his walk around the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium tonight rather than the weekend. And he'll be very pleased with the clean sheet as well. And ahead of a big few weeks for Spurs, to have Manchester United here on Saturday, then the international break, then Arsenal, then Paris Saint-Germain away in the Champions League. Further Champions League games to come against Slavia Prague, Dortmund and Frankfurt. But Tottenham on course for a place, at least in the playoffs. They'll argue the top 8, no question. And with more performances like this in Europe, then they have every chance of reaching it. First half really belonged to Tottenham, and Brennan Johnson with that fine goal. Katarski at fault for the first. That second goal from Odegaard calming the nerves. The red card, Curtis, could have changed it. Ironically, it's probably that won the game for Spurs, because Copenhagen sensed their moment, and it was 2 goals on the break that eventually swung the game firmly in Spurs' favour.
Yeah, it was almost as if Copenhagen went into just self-capitulation mode, basically. They came flying out thinking they needed to score in the first couple of minutes, leaving themselves short at the back. Listen, Van der Ven's goal was a wonder goal, but the way the first initial press on him, who's going to maybe make, as we said earlier, a smart foul to stop him? Nobody does that, and once he gets that goal, but from there were another 2-3 opportunities. Kolo Muani ends up running into Katarski. You know, there's a lot of opportunities where other goals could have happened, but fair play to Tottenham. They kept going, end up winning the game 4-0. And listen, this Copenhagen team, they've got a lot to ask for, because listen, their fans have come, they've supported them a lot, but they've got to go back disappointed with the way that they just allowed them in too quick and didn't make more of a game of it when that 10-men happened.
Final word has to go to Mickey van der Ven. We've seen a replay of his goal on the big screen. He picks it up, it's inside his area, on the line, and then he beats 4-5 players in midfield, and then he accelerates. Normally when a centre-half does that, they tend to get slower and slower, but he accelerates like a seasoned sprinter, and it's such a cool finish. It's just a wonderful goal.
There's only a few of us that can do that. But I think you can see the difference there between Van der Ven and Romero. Romero, as soon as he got into the area, he ran out of puff and was like, can I make the pass, which he did to Paulinho and got the assist. But Van der Ven, as soon as he got into that area, he had one thought in his mind, and he finished like a true strike. And you see here with Romero now, it comes up on the screen, can decide to drive forward, chooses, nope, I'll pass to Paulinho. There we go, 4-0, game over. And he's just happy that he can take the breath and go back to his position, to be honest.
Good night for Tottenham, and it's a good night for their Champions League aspirations, and a good night following a bad night a couple of days ago. Curtis, thank you, very much enjoyed it.
Yeah, loved it, top man.
The game and your company, and hopefully we'll speak to you again soon. And thank you for your company as well on BBC Radio 5 Sports Extra. More fallout to this game and the Liverpool game over on BBC Radio 5 Live. But from the Sports Extra team here at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium and back at base, thank you for your company, and we'll speak to you again soon.